Chapter 41, First Entry, History Revisionist. Where is my horse? Even when he followed Gus into the largest slave guild in the port, Byron was still troubled by the group of misfits under his command. The misfortunes of indentured servants vary, and of course the lives of pirates also have their own joys and sorrows. There are usually three motivations that make a person decide to become a pirate. One is the extreme poverty that makes it impossible to survive in the darkness of the future. The other is the desire for wealth, power, and breaking through the class. The last type is those criminals on the mainland who are really desperate. It is because every extraordinary profession has its own motto and professional standards. The lawmaster, punishment knight, warden of the Inquisition, and even the judge knight of the church will not miss any opportunity to be promoted. We will definitely track down those criminals and hunt them down to the ends of the earth. Since ancient times, the vast ocean has been the safest refuge for criminals. Under normal circumstances, the second and third motives often combine to become the main force among pirate groups. It is almost impossible to find the kind of good family kids that the army prefers when selecting soldiers. There is no organization and no discipline. They may be strong and dare to fight and kill, but even if their resources and knowledge are unlimited, they can hardly become the strong army with iron will that Byron remembered. Byron didn't want to accept all kinds of people on board. As the seeds for future pirate groups, the quality of the original personnel is particularly important. Maybe I should just find a group of blank slates and train them from scratch for a year or two. If Byron were to be given a definition for his own behavior pattern, he would think lawful evil might be more appropriate. Willing to be a self-interested person according to certain rules, and when one's own interests conflict with others, one will choose to sacrifice others without hesitation. But they will also maintain order and stability and strive to formulate rules and laws that are in their own interests. Regardless of their abilities, the crew members who will board the Golden Hind in the future must at least not be chaotic evil who only cause trouble. What are you looking at? 8 fingers? Gus. Byron looked up and suddenly realized that 8 fingers and Gus, who had been following him, had stopped without noticing. Following their gaze, I discovered that this slave guild, which had many trading companies settled in, was selling more than just slaves. Entering the main entrance of the slave guild, one actually discovers a bustling commercial street. On both sides of the wide road, there are densely packed shops in minimalist northern style. Everywhere you look, there are contraband items defined by the church and the kingdom. Hallucinogenic drugs, strong poisons, powerful military weapons, small hidden arrows for assassination, and a variety of explosives. There are even many extraordinary potions that are obviously made with forbidden knowledge. There is no need to use echoes of history, it is all clearly written on their labels. Wandering Witch's Height Increasing Potion. It can make adults continue to grow taller. 1 bottle of magic potion can increase the height by 5 centimeters, but it cannot increase weight at the same time. Please distribute your own mass carefully. The Wandering Witch's Slimming Potion. Only effective for women, a bottle of magic potion can make you lose 10 pounds in 3 days, but the slimming part is random. Wandering Witch's Iron Cannon Potion. Only effective for men, the red pill can make a certain part of the body very energetic all day long. Also random. Maybe you can get an indestructible tongue or finger. There are many similar potions, and their main feature is that their effects are powerful and unpredictable. For a moment, Byron couldn't tell whether this was the effect of the potion or a side effect of the punishment mechanism. Rather than calling them potions, it would be better to say that they are a complete display of the side effects of forbidden knowledge. Byron wondered how brave a person had to be to drink such a thing. However, when he continued to read, he found that what attracted 8 fingers and Gus was not these things, but a list posted on the wall. Charles Rich List, this time, Iris Kingdom, Lowana County. 23,800th, Doyle Harvey, Spice Merchant, Director of Time Trading Company, with a net worth of £25100th, Clemens Walter, Lord, a lucky noble heir, with a fortune of £8th place, Bart Clark, ship owner, owns 2 ocean-going merchant ships, with a net worth of £29300, 7th place, Thomas Wayne. The honest man looked at the dizzying numbers on it with his 8 fingers, wiped the saliva that was about to flow to the corners of his mouth, and muttered to himself, "It turns out that there are so many rich people in just one county. They must work very hard, right?" Although it is not the first time that money-loving Gus has seen the rich list, he still feels a little uncomfortable every time he sees it. That face full of poverty was filled with deep envy. This list changes every week with a new region and a new group of wealthy people. But no matter how remote the place is, as long as they are on the list, I can't afford to marry them. I don't know when I can be on the list. Byron shook his head helplessly, waved his hand in front of them, and poured a basin of cold water on them. Hey, come back to your senses. Don't even look at where this place is. Now that the so-called rich list is posted in Anchor Bay, it is no longer a rich list, but a real pig-killing list. Praise them for their hard work? Should I take their place? Hey, you two are unqualified to be pirates. You are a disgrace to this profession. As he spoke, he raised his hand and called a fierce pirate passing by, pointed at the list and asked him, "Dude, what's your first thought when you see this rich list?" "Nonsense, of course. They robbed these fat sheep." The man looked at Byron pitifully, as if he were a fool, shook his head and turned away. Byron then turned around and spread his hands to the two stunned young men. "You see, this is the normal reaction of a pirate. In fact, dignitaries and extraordinary people from all countries know about this very famous first-class holy relic Charles Rich list on the East Coast, also known as the legendary Fat Sheep list. It once belonged to the North Sea pirate king Whale Hunter, and is now managed by the Captain's Council of Anchor Bay. Every week, the names of some of the richest people in a region will be randomly selected and displayed. The higher the sequence level, the smaller the possibility of being on the list. It has always served as a business guide for pirates. Every time the original version is updated, the Captain's Council of Iron Anchor Bay will copy it and post it throughout Iron Anchor Bay to facilitate their selection of looting targets. This item is undoubtedly a holy relic for the pirates of Iron Anchor Bay, and it can help them make a fortune. But for the wealthy people on the list, it is undoubtedly a cursed object. Even if there is no curse of extraordinary powers, the mere fact that every detail of one's property is exposed to countless hungry wolves is terrifying enough. About 1/5 of them disappeared from the world completely within a year after making the list. And I heard that 45% of the richest people in the world are from the remit. Eight Fingers and Gus couldn't help swallowing their saliva, and finally had a more intuitive understanding of the dangers of the extraordinary world. There are some things in this world that are far more secretive than guns and swords, and more difficult to guard against. No matter whether it was Gus, who had some knowledge, or Eight Fingers, the country bumpkin, they no longer dared to point fingers at the things here and followed Byron closely. But after Byron gave them some knowledge about the holy relics, they began to look forward to when they could get a powerful holy relic of their own. Byron looked at the first entry historical editor that he had successfully activated after taking office as Storm Knight. And its effects. 1. The anchor in you is more secure. The person with whom you have an anchored connection will also be more easily drawn into a vortex of history with you, approaching all kinds of unknowns and secrets. Of course, if the anchors are strong enough and there are enough of them, they might be able to pull you right out of the vortex. 30. As compensation, when participating in secret events with a historical influence of more than, you can summon a one-time holy relic related to a region or nation from history at any time to help you correct history. The higher the level of decryption, the stronger the effect of the holy relic will be. I secretly said. In fact, it may not be that difficult to obtain a holy relic. That's when Byron suddenly stopped in front of a store that looked very familiar, called Golden Palm Trading Company. He frowned and stared at the door for a long time with some uncertainty. Finally, I couldn't help but walked in, following the fleeting throbbing in my heart. Chapter 42, The Lord is Supreme. Dear Captain, what type of slaves do you want? We at Golden Palm Trading have it all. Look, here are the strong natives of the colony, the butler-type indentured servants who are proficient in all kinds of aristocratic etiquette and financial knowledge, and the charming and hot beautiful dancers from the western part of the continent. Even if it is a rare species of alien, as long as you place an order and pay a 30% deposit in advance, we have the ability to get it back for you. As soon as Byron entered the door, a well-dressed waiter came up to him and enthusiastically introduced his company's products to him. Following the direction of his finger, I saw that in the rather large exhibition hall, fences and cast iron cages were filled with piles of shackled slaves. There were male slaves with good physiques and ragged clothes, and female slaves with slightly revealing clothes. There were indeed a lot of them, both in terms of variety and number. Moreover, according to normal experience, the things on display are just the cheapest and most common goods. Most of the top quality goods are kept in the single room at the back. Byron ignored the waiter's exaggerated rhetoric and took 2 steps forward, but then hesitated as if he had encountered some difficulty. Because the throbbing feeling that just made him feel excited disappeared in the blink of an eye. Why, Captain Byron, don't you know how to choose? I have extensive experience in the slave guild. Seeing Byron's expression, Gus thought that he was too young and had never been exposed to such shady things, so he quickly stepped forward to serve his employer. Byron, who had no clue, could only temporarily suppress his impatience and asked with some doubt. Do you buy slaves often? Do you have a lot of experience in selecting slaves? But I always feel like this isn't a place you can afford anyway. No, not buying, but I have a lot of experience in being sold. Gus patted his chest and proudly told him about his great achievements. Because the sense of existence is naturally zero. In the past, when he really couldn't make a living and didn't want to trouble his neighbors, he would often run to slave traders of all sizes to sell himself. Although the people here don't speak very nicely, at least they provide food and accommodation, so he still likes it here very much. Moreover, merchants were afraid that starving the slaves would make them thin and look bad, which would affect the price, so they usually allowed them to be well fed. Gus naturally became a frequent visitor to the slave guild. He even compares prices from 3 different restaurants and stays 2 more days in the restaurant that offers better food. Anyway, he would soon be forgotten. After waiting for a long time, he would escape when the guards were not paying attention or after being bought by someone. He had even been to the Golden Palm Trading Company many times. After all, it was the property of the remit people, and Gus didn't feel guilty at all when he had the chance to cheat them. He didn't care at all that the waiter was standing next to him. When the latter heard his story, they didn't take it seriously at all, shrugged their shoulders, and thought he was bragging. Anyway, as far as he could remember, nothing like this had ever happened. When Byron and 8 Fingers, led by Gus, walked familiarly towards the VIP area of better quality, the waiter suddenly slapped his head. I haven't even finished introducing them yet, why did these 2 just leave on their own? It seemed as if he had completely forgotten about Gus. Only Byron smiled with interest as he looked at the record about Gus in the diary. Led by Gus, the 2 walked through most of the cargo area. When Byron saw a slave whose qualities met his standards, he would buy him without hesitation, regardless of his skin color. Soon, more than a dozen people followed behind him. He is not short of money now. Because of the principle of not wasting. He secretly sold the heads of former Captain Salmon, worth £4,300, and the head of Magic Mirror West, worth £4,800. Those black market merchants who take on all kinds of business naturally have internal channels to go to various countries to collect the bounty, but they give Byron a half-price discount. But it's already a lot of money. It is particularly worth mentioning that although Magic Mirror West is a privateering captain recognized by the House of York, he enjoys judicial immunity from Hastings. But it does not mean that the plundered enemy country will show mercy. If caught by the enemy, they will be executed for piracy. As expected, there are no Lancastrian soldiers among these indentured servants from the old world. With the new king crowned, their lives may be difficult in the next few years, but they will not lose their lives. Most people don't end up like this. Byron felt that non-core members of the Lancaster party would most likely be used as local garrison troops, depriving them of all opportunities to make achievements. But I really don't dare to think about what will happen to those who are close to Lancaster and have a close relationship with him. His aunt, the former Queen Margaret, he grew up with her and was her childhood sweetheart, a descendant of a retainer, and a loyal guardian knight. Captain, the area ahead is the special area where extraordinary people are detained. The cages here are all made of a special material spell-breaking stone. Whether it is the power of the Silver Law or the Pirate Code, or even one's own spirituality, all are blocked. Any extraordinary abilities, including black magic, cannot be stimulated, and those who are imprisoned inside are just relatively strong ordinary people. Gus led them into the deepest cargo area and pointed at 10 black stone cages in the distance. There are 10 cages here, but only 4 of them contain people. Moreover, the 3 people standing there were either too old or missing arms and legs, and were obviously defective products. But at least they were still breathing, but the one lying on the ground at last couldn't even sit up. Before they could get there, they suddenly heard a shrill, insect-like voice shouting, "Captain Woodpecker Maltz wants all these slaves. But why is there an ugly, half-dead monster in here? Are they dead or not? I want to take them back and use them as petri dishes for insects. If they die before the insects hatch, I won't pay you." However, another group of guests had arrived here before them. The leading pirate untied the sword tied around his waist, used it as a stick and thrust it into the cage, poking the sleeping figure lying on the ground, wanting to see if he still had any reaction. The waiter who was serving him stepped forward to stop him. "Guest, Don't do anything, he was just badly injured and passed out. Besides, what we sell are raw materials. As long as they are used before the soul dissipates, they are no different from living things. If you stab him to death, you must pay the full amount. The noisy sound immediately attracted the attention of Byron and the other two. When they tried to get closer, they were blocked by several expressionless pirates. Several pirates shouted in equally shrill voices, "We have packed all the goods here, please leave." Behind the human wall, the leading pirate captain completely ignored the waiter's dissuasion and continued to poke the man's face with his scabbard. The blisters burst and blood splattered everywhere. Even though he was unconscious, the slave lying there still instinctively twitched in pain. "Ha ha ha, he's not dead yet, otherwise I would have a lot less fun." The pirate captain was overjoyed, as if abusing others and making them feel pain could give him an extraordinary pleasure. At this moment an accident occurred. Just as he swung his sword again, the figure on the ground suddenly opened a pair of somewhat empty eyes. He grabbed the scabbard with his intact right hand, and with his superb swordsmanship, he took the sword away with his bare hands, then took advantage of the situation to swing the scabbard and hit the opponent's nose hard. Immediately, blood flowed everywhere. What? However, bystanders could see it all through those empty eyes. The slave had not regained consciousness at all, but was acting entirely on physical instinct, using his strong willpower to break through the limitations of his broken body. His lifeless eyes had no focus, and he muttered a promise like a dream: "The king is supreme, and those who disobey him will never be forgiven. My lord is supreme, and no one can offend me before I die. Honor is supreme, tooth for tooth, blood for blood." Creak. A sound like a back tooth being bitten suddenly came from behind the wall of people. Several pirates who were blocking the way were casually pushed aside, and a figure strode forward to the waiter. With a little bit of mockery towards Woodpecker, he said calmly as if he didn't care, "I'm also interested in these witchcraft materials, so please sell them all to me." Chapter 43. Enemies meet on a narrow road. Inquisition sequence. Sworn Knight. Instead of choosing one's own motto from the 8 virtues, or elsewhere, upon promotion, a more demanding, unbreakable vow is taken instead. Normally they fight like ordinary knights, but under special circumstances stipulated in the oath, they can unleash amazing power. For example, stay single for life and protect your people, desperately sacrifice your own life and kill all your enemies. According to the oath of this oath knight, when he fights to protect the king, lord, and honor, in addition to gaining a combat power bonus, he can also share some of the lord's talents or unique extraordinary abilities. Oath Knight is therefore also known as one of the most suitable professions for serving as guardian knight. They are the lord's most reliable spear and shield. As Byron approached, a spiritual spark seemed to flicker with great difficulty in the depths of the empty eyes of this oath knight. But it failed to light up, and his body collapsed dejectedly. He was seriously injured. What is amazing is that even though that face has long been unrecognizable, one can still see that his originally furrowed brows have relaxed. It was like finally returning to a safe place after fleeing thousands of miles. Damn it! A mere witchcraft material dares to resist? I will kill you. The woodpecker Maltz next to him finally dealt with his bleeding nose. He pulled out the fisher sword from the pirate's first mate beside him and slashed it hard at the oath knight in the cage. Suddenly, a sword light as bright as lightning flashed before my eyes. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. A half-hand sword suddenly appeared between the two, blocking Fisher's sword's attack line with its strong sword body. In a moment of entanglement, the sword was suddenly drawn, the sword body flipped upward at a speed that was difficult to capture with the naked eye, and easily pushed the sword in the hand of the woodpecker aside. In the process, he completely broke down his defenses, and with the final move of the bull sword style, he pressed the tip of the sword firmly against the opponent's neck. His eyes were sharp and cold, more fierce and cruel than those of an angry pirate. I've already said this is the material I want. You still dare to do it, do you want to die early? At the same time, Echoes of History has already glimpsed some of the history of this extraordinary person. Title: Woodpecker Maltz, Captain of the privateering ship Insect's Song. The privateering license he holds is from the Kingdom of Hattings. Enemy road is narrow. A first-order attendant level beast tamer in the wilderness sequence. Sequence motto: I came, I saw, I conquered. Their vision and the name of the wilderness sequence are exactly the opposite. The goal is to conquer ourselves, conquer nature, and then gradually transform the vast wilderness into a humanized world where humans can survive. The abilities of the same profession within the sequence are the same. Without looking at the log, Byron could tell with his eyes closed that the three abilities of the beast tamer at the servant level were silent steps, extraordinary endurance, and telepathy. This is a profession that is more inclined towards magic, and the combat effectiveness is heavily dependent on one's own beast training. Competing with a storm knight in swordsmanship is simply like showing off one's skills in front of an expert. However, the forbidden knowledge, blessing of the Ant Queen displayed at the end of the record made Byron slightly more cautious. In just a short while, the continuous losses made Woodpecker Maltz completely angry and humiliated. There was a sudden sharp insect sound in my stomach. Squeak! Behind him, the 4 or 5 pirates he brought with him also made the same harsh sounds in their stomachs. Then the whole body became filled with blood and the skin turned blood red. This is Maltz's hidden black magic blessing of the Ant Queen. It is said that when common ants are infected with tapeworms found in woodpecker droppings, they break through the limitations of their bodies and their lifespan increases threefold. Other worker ants will mistake them for queen ants and take good care of them, until they grow fat and big, and are then eaten by woodpeckers, allowing the tapeworms in their stomachs to continue to reproduce. This taboo knowledge works on the same principle. Woodpecker, the character played by Maltz, is the woodpecker, and what is hidden in his stomach is the trained animal he has trained, the blood tapeworm. Infects crew members with tapeworms, giving them false powers to work for him. When the tapeworms in the bodies of these queen ants mature, they are used to feed the mother worms in their own stomachs to strengthen their own strength. Maltz cleverly combined his profession with forbidden knowledge, creating an effect where 1 + 1 was greater than 2. If you bring along a team of carefully trained queen ants, their combat effectiveness will be unmatched by ordinary servants of the same level. Even the overall strength of the pirate ship is stronger than that of the man-eating shark led by the second-level extraordinary person Blood-Eye Salmon in its heyday. Looking at the prompt in the log, Byron shook his head slightly. This is true for Blood-Eye Salmon, and this woodpecker Maltz as well. As soon as forbidden knowledge is acquired, human nature seems to begin to drift away. Compared to them, Magic Mirror West, who has a serious misophobia, is simply a kind person who silently bears all the side effects. Of course, Woodpecker cannot escape the side effects of forbidden knowledge. Spiritual level, human nature deviates, and people gradually like to play with and abuse their prey. Physical level, like a queen ant, both himself and the parasitized crew members will transform into females little by little. That's right, these grumpy old guys who look like they can run a horse on their shoulders are actually all women physically. It's a pity that no matter how strong they become, a mere few of them are still far from reaching the level of quantitative change leading to qualitative change and defeating the Storm Knight in close combat. Clang! Clang! 8 Fingers and Guts also immediately drew their weapons and stood with Byron. Pirate code is naturally full of pirate spirit. In Anchor Bay, when facing a deadly threat, you can use unlimited counterattacks. There is no such thing as excessive defense. Byron made up his mind that as long as this privateer captain, who was obviously like Magic Mirror West and was summoned to Anchor Bay by the Admiralty, dared to take action, he would dare to use the rules to kill them openly, and the law enforcement team would not say anything. Stop! Just as the two sides were about to fight, the profiteer Michael rushed out from the non-slave area on the other side with a group of guards armed with long muskets. They quickly formed a human wall to separate the two parties, who obviously had bad tempers. Although the Remit people are generally recognized to be cunning and black-hearted, they also attach great importance to business reputation under normal circumstances. If a customer were to die in a bloody fight in your own store, not to mention a series of negative consequences that would follow, you would not be able to make any money today. It's nothing but money. Hey, is that you? The warehouse manager. At this time, he also recognized Byron, who had made him look ridiculous 2 days ago. The waiter next to him, who had been in a state of panic for a long time, saw Michael as if he had seen a savior, and hurried forward to tell the steward everything that had just happened. After hearing this, Michael immediately smiled, revealing his iconic gold tooth. We only have one batch of goods here. Since both of you want them, how about bidding? The materials here are all first-rank attendant grade. Although they are all old, weak, sick, and disabled and cannot be trained as subordinates, they will definitely be kept alive. The standard price of a servant-level slave was moderately reduced to £1,000, an average of £800 per slave, with a starting price of £3,200 for 4. Gentlemen, please increase your price. Although Michael suffered a loss at the hands of Byron, he did not treat him differently. People like them open trading companies to make money, not to compete with others. Don't they know which is more important, face or money? The Creator is my ancestor, and the customer is the creator. I concluded that my dear customers are my ancestors, and there is nothing wrong with that. If you can't get along with money, then go and fight with a sucker. No, it's the ancestor with considerable financial resources. Isn't it just like those rebellious and brainless supporting characters in night novels? It can even be said that if things like face and morality can be sold, this golden eyes from the genuine sequence doesn't mind selling them all by the pound, although, he didn't have that kind of thing. Chapter 44, Brothers Reunite, Harming Others to Benefit Themselves. Byron was not surprised to see this familiar face, as he had expected this when he walked into the Golden Palm Trading Company. But money speaks and truth remains silent. He happens to be rich, like a wealthy upstart. Byron took the initiative. I am only short of 4 extraordinary materials for the forbidden ritual I want to perform. It's just £3,200. I'll take it all. He certainly doesn't want everyone here, but you must never reveal your true thoughts during business negotiations, especially the most urgent needs. Apart from being manipulated by others, there is absolutely no positive effect. This matter is too important, we can only succeed and not fail. Whether it is being exploited by competitors or merchants, it is definitely not what Byron wants to see. Upon hearing this, Woodpecker Maltz immediately became anxious, no longer caring about being offended, and jumped up and shouted. No, I was here first, so all these people belong to me. I'll raise the price by £3,300. These privateering captains were all sent here with a mission. Knowing that something big was about to happen in Anchor Bay, they were all working hard to improve their strength. The principle of his Queen Ant blessing is very simple, which is to use the host's body to cultivate blood tapeworms. The stronger the host, the more powerful the tapeworm offspring will be. He does not despise any of the old, weak, sick, or disabled extraordinary people. As long as we use their bodies as hosts to cultivate tapeworm larvae, we can quickly create several monster-like powerful crew members. Allow him to shine in this operation. Moreover, 2 days ago they received a message from the White Crystal, which was also a privateering ship. Captain Magic Mirror West disappeared for no apparent reason after discovering the trace of the Devil's Son. The other privateer captains were all eager to catch this big fish. Now everyone knows that within the Kingdom of Hattings, the defeated Lancastrian party has vacated a large number of titles. This may be the only chance for this group of desperate criminals in the grey area to turn the tables and become the masters. No matter how huge the investment is, it is worth it. Moreover, as the date of the parliamentary election approaches, more and more pirate captains arrive at Anchor Bay, and prices rise suddenly. It is true that the quick hand wins and the slow hand loses. It is not easy to get the raw materials here, how can I let them go easily? But Byron was just like a fool, his attitude was even more resolute than his, and he was determined to fight him to the end. I'll offer £3,400, 8 fingers pays. Without waiting for 8 fingers to take out the large certificate of deposit from his pocket, Woodpecker Maltz immediately raised the price as well. £3,500. I'll give you £3,500. Seeing the profiteer Shamir, whose face was already beaming with joy, and Byron on the other side, who seemed to have the same urgent need and was not at all reluctant to pay more, he raised the price. Finally, the woodpecker's brain, which was overwhelmed by anger, came to its senses again, and began to weigh the pros and cons, and even took the initiative to give in. Quietly activated his ability telepathy to Byron, and said to Byron sincerely on the spiritual level, friend, let's talk about this. We all come here for the raw materials. Why are we competing here? But it gives that profiteer Rymet a free advantage. If you have time to compete and raise the price here, you will have enough money to buy another servant-level slave from other slave traders. Byron knew that the other party had the ability to collude in bidding, so he was not surprised. He just maintained his usual attitude and refused to change his mind. In that case, then you should leave and go somewhere else. The woodpecker's face froze, and he asked tentatively, my friend is joking, as long as you withdraw, you can set conditions. Although we pirates make money quickly, it doesn't come from the wind. I'll give you £100 for your hard work. How about that? £100 is an astronomical figure for an ordinary family, which shows sincerity. But it only brought Byron's sneer. How funny. Does this captain look like someone who is short of money? £100 to send off a beggar. Seeing this guy determined to take advantage of him, Woodpecker was so angry that his teeth were itching. If they were outside, he would definitely drive his own insect song and fire all its cannons to send him and his pirate ship into the cold seabed, here I can only suppress the anger that is about to reach its limit. Is there really no room for negotiation? Byron saw that the fire had almost burned out, and if he didn't let go, it might backfire, so he said, everyone is a prominent figure. If I fight you and return empty-handed, how will my men look at me? How will these slaves I just bought to supplement the crew look at me? You should understand, right? The woodpecker's eyes lit up, and he immediately realized the crux of the matter. Without thinking about anything else, he quickly went along with it and nodded vigorously, okay, I'll give you a favor, and we can be friends. Mate, give the money and leave the half-dead, dying creature to the captain. He stuffed the payment to Michael, snatched the key, and left with the 3 extraordinary people who were obviously more likely to survive. The only thing left was the least cost-effective Oath Knight who looked like he might die at any time, to Byron. Byron was not polite either. He threw the money to Michael, snatched the key, opened the shackles on the Oath Knight, and took over his ownership. The profiteer Michael, who got the money, didn't care about their attitude at all. It was a pleasant surprise that 2 companies could compete with each other to drive up prices. Those who can become pirate captains are not fools. It is already very good that this transaction can have an overall premium of £300. Only after the Oath Knight was carefully placed on a stretcher and carried up by 8 fingers and guts did Byron finally breathe a sigh of relief. Most people tend to seek harmony and compromise. If you tell others at the beginning that the room is too dark and that they must build a skylight, others will definitely not allow it. But if you insist on tearing down the roof directly, they will immediately come to reconcile and be willing to open a skylight. In psychology, it is called the house demolishing effect. If Byron directly named a specific one of the 4, it would definitely arouse the suspicion of the cunning slave trader Michael and the old pirate woodpecker, causing trouble. The lion made a huge request right away and proposed a plan that the woodpecker could not accept. If he made a slight concession, the woodpecker would come up with the plan to open the skylight himself. Byron successfully achieved his goal without encountering any major problems. After the dust settled, he realized that he had been too nervous and his palms and back were already soaked with cold sweat. Turning his head to look at the miserable injuries of the Oath Knight, he held his intact hand and said softly in a voice that only he could hear. I'm here, it's okay, Brooke, let's go home. Although I can no longer return to my real home, whether it is a palace or a thatched cottage, as long as my family is there, that is home. There is no doubt that this miserable sworn knight is one of Byron's few family members in this world. Guardian Knight Ironwall Brooke. Although he could hardly connect the inhuman being in front of him with the serious guardian knight in his memory who smiled with a bit of simplicity. If the 2 people had not grown up together, they would be so familiar with each other that they would not need to distinguish each other by appearance and body shape. Nor could he be recognized at a glance through the law-breaking stone cage that blocked the power of the law. Take care, guest. Welcome to come again next time. Byron turned around and took a deep look at Michael, who was grinning with his gold teeth showing and waving at him enthusiastically. Of course, Byron could also see what the slave traders had experienced through their injuries. Brooke, who was known as the Iron Wall, had apparently gone through an extremely brutal torture and fight, and had barely escaped death. At this moment, Byron was extremely grateful to the first entry historical revisionist. 1. Your anchor is more stable. The person with whom you have an anchoring connection will also be more likely to be drawn into a certain historical vortex with you, approaching various unknowns and secrets. This one can be a disaster for those who have a stable life. But for those who are already deeply trapped in the vortex, it will not make their lives any worse. Although the Golden Palm Trading Company did not play a glorious role in this, without them, the 2 brothers would not have been able to reunite so soon. Byron simply pretended that neither owed the other anything. The first thing he did after leaving the business was to give Brooke a bottle of blue blood spring to temporarily stabilize his injuries. But he also knew that conventional potions could at most keep Brooke alive, but could not restore him to his original state. But the forbidden knowledge blood brew in Byron's hands is best at harming others and benefiting himself. He stared coldly at the back of woodpecker mouths in front of him and whispered to himself, the transmutation blood brewed by ordinary people won't work, but the one brewed by extraordinary people will definitely work. The York family may not be able to enter Anchor Bay, so the blame will be placed on you York hounds. I remember that the York family has nearly 200 privateers in total. No matter what you are here for, I will accept such a large blood bank without hesitation. Chapter 45, Venture Capital, Taking Advantage of the Situation. In front of Golden Palm Trading Company. Michael, the profiteer who had enthusiastically seen Byron and his party off, was also watching his receding back, with a hint of amusement gradually emerging in his eyes. A few days ago, when I first met this pirate, he was still the warehouse manager of the man-eating shark. When I saw him for the second time today, he had already become the captain. The former captain's fate is obvious. It is obvious that this pirate is no simple character. Although he doesn't even have a title of his own now, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw his name on a level 1 bounty order one day. To be honest, I have a strong feeling that this is very likely to be a good venture capital project, worthy of strong support from the company's special fund. As we all know, under the extraordinary system of silver law, a person's extraordinary career is his actual career in the social system and is also part of the normal operation of the entire human world. If you want to be promoted in an extraordinary profession, you must abide by your respective professional norms and fulfill your job responsibilities. In other words, if you want to continue to get promoted, you must be a model worker and you must be the type who works diligently all your life. Take the pirates that are everywhere for example. Even if they don't want to do it anymore when they get older, they still have to continue to stay on the sea. Unless you can tolerate stagnation or even gradual decline in your career rank. There are very few lucky people who, like the ancestors of the Lancaster family, created a new career based on piracy and successfully landed and established a kingdom. The meaning of "men are afraid of choosing the wrong career" has been intensified to the extreme. The same is of course true for the extraordinary people in the Gold and Yuan sequence. The core ability of GoldenEye is identification, which is similar to the ability attached to the logbook, but has been greatly weakened. In your career, you will come into contact with more precious treasures and successfully complete a series of processes such as identification, collection, and trading, and your strength will continue to increase. Among them, identification of various dead objects is the least difficult. The difficulty of identifying animal products such as horses, xiangma, and hunting dogs, xiangchuan, is next highest. The difficulty of identifying people is the highest, otherwise, there wouldn't be business cases with extremely high return on investment such as rare goods are valuable. Even if you are a pure orthodox transcendent, all your abilities come from the silver law, and others probably won't even be able to tell whether you are a transcendent or not. Michael encountered difficulties with Byron. Unfortunately, I have no idea what this pirate captain's profession is. Last time, I could vaguely see a little bit of spiritual glow, probably between sublimation and unsublimation, but this time there is nothing. The identification technique is completely ineffective on him. Judging from what he did that day, is he a craftsman from the Tower sequence? A prophet? A historian? A naturalist? Sequence proverbs, use knowledge to drive out ignorance? No, 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 that shouldn't be the case. How could a transcendent from the Tower sequence come here and become a pirate, or is he just a small pirate with only one armed merchant ship? Moreover, compared with ordinary people, first-level extraordinary people can only be regarded as the best in the same industry. What can be accomplished with extraordinary abilities can also be accomplished by ordinary people with decades of experience and training. I can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference at all. Michael habitually exercised his abilities on Byron, but to no avail. Naturally, the venture investment assessment report that he wanted to submit to the company could not be produced. Forget it, we'll see each other sooner or later. During this time, we can let the company's intelligence system pay a little attention to this person. If he can really show his potential, it won't be too late to make an investment. Money speaks, truth is silent. In this world, the church is not the only one that has been bought and invested in by the remit people. Business groups, pirates, ocean exploration companies, traditional aristocrats, small countries. The dense investment network beneath the surface makes their potential power terrifyingly large. At this time, the waiter who had served Byron came to his side and reported quietly. "Mr. Michael, the guest just now is really rich. Not far from the door, I saw him giving the raw material a bottle of precious potion, actually blood brew. Not right either. It should be said that the customers who came to buy slaves today were very generous. Before noon, 1/3 of the newly arrived goods had been sold." Hearing this, Michael nodded thoughtfully. Indeed, there's something a little off about Captain Woodpecker's determined attitude. I even feel that there is something wrong with the wind direction in Anchor Bay recently. With parliamentary elections approaching, it is normal to have a large crowd. However, some pirates are spontaneously buying up goods and recruiting soldiers in the market at all costs to improve their strength. Even the fight for the warlord was a bit too much. This month, the crown of Hastings changed hands, and then the Anchor Bay Council, which was of the same origin, also showed signs of chaos. His eyes rolled around, his brain quickly processed the information he had observed during this period, and then he decisively give orders that we should not sell the remaining items at a higher price as originally planned. According to the past parity clearance, try to clear out all stocks before the end of October. All the local banks are opened by us remit people. Don't keep their deposit certificates this time. Exchange them all for real money. Captain James and his ship, the Rainbow Trout, were to return with some of the valuable cargo we had acquired this month. Send the 2 most beautiful female slaves in the company to him and ask him to stay for 2 more days. The parliamentary election is in mid-November, or at the latest in early November. We will all go with him, the treasure guardian. Someone has calculated that nearly 45% of the people on the Charles Rich list in Anchor Bay are remit people. Most of them did not become the 1/5 that disappeared the following year, and it is obvious that they have their own unique ability to predict crises. In a world filled with extraordinary powers. In addition to being money-hungry, their sense of wealth and crisis has also made this group ingrained with the ability to change with the wind. If you sense any sign of trouble, run away immediately. The waiter was about to leave as ordered when he was suddenly stopped by Michael. First, catch up with the captain just now, give him my business card, and invite him to participate in our next clearance sale. Whatever profit I didn't make in the last transaction, I will be able to make back in the next transaction sooner or later. In this world, no one can always take advantage of me, Michael. This is how I do business. With a grin, his iconic big gold teeth sparkled in the sun. The other end. Byron, who had been given a business card along the way, had already brought Brooke and a dozen slaves he had bought back to the Rosemary Inn, where conditions were relatively better. He arranged the best room for his guardian knight. A second-level professional in the hospital sequence, Dr. Crow, was hired at a high price to clean his wounds, correct broken bones, and speed up the healing process. But that's all we can do. No matter what they tried, they still couldn't wake Brooke up. Under the Silver Law system, all humans share what they have. The efficiency of accumulating knowledge and experience can be greatly improved, instead of being able to create knowledge that has never existed in the world out of thin air. In addition, all kinds of forbidden knowledge are very fond of human flesh and blood and instinctive negative desires. Under the deliberate suppression of the Church, many invisible obstacles were added to the development of medicine. To be honest, human beings' research on the soul and the spiritual world is far beyond their research on the material body. Even the core ability that this Crow doctor obtained at the second-level professional level was only inspire vitality. It can help wounds heal quickly, but it will also shorten cell lifespan accordingly. Byron saw that the pain between Brooke's brows had finally eased a little, but his mood did not relax much. The only 2 bottles of blue blood spring and a Crow doctor can only save Brooke's life. The opening of the ritual blood holy grail must be put on the agenda immediately. As the most loyal stewards, Brooke's family has served Lancaster for 3 generations and is far more loyal and reliable than anyone else. Brooke was only 1 year older than Byron, but he was a true genius who awakened on his own at the age of 16. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to become Byron's guardian knight. His loyalty, potential and top-notch education were enough to make him Byron's right-hand man and the perfect first mate. In addition, Byron could not forget the reminder in the ship log. The flood of this world has never receded, so make sure you tie your anchor tightly. And the guardian knight Brooke is one of Byron's few remaining anchors in this world. However, Byron's expression also froze slightly. Starting the ceremony means that the unknown side effect that has been resisted for so long is finally coming. Chapter 46. Guts joins the gang, Phantom Blade. Brooke's serious injury finally became the last straw that made Byron determined to start the ceremony to refine the transmutation blood. With the effect of the first entry historical revisor, he could not escape the vortex that was about to stir up the entire North Sea situation. But not only did he get the protection of the first-level rare item Storm Seal Ring, he also had a trump card that could save his life by extracting Holy Relic according to the density of the unlocking. Byron decided to take the initiative and go for it. Not only do we have to chop off a few minions of the York family, but we also have to find a way to sabotage the Admiralty's plans for Anchor Bay and make them feel the real pain. It would be even better if you could unlock Secret, Shadow of the Red and White Rose War at the same time. At worst, I can sacrifice myself again, join their camp, and become their loyal confidant, before executing the plan. Byron needs to find a well-informed local boss to help him dig out all the privateering captains who serve the Kingdom of Hastings. And he just happened to have a very suitable candidate. 8 Fingers, go get Gus over here. I need to talk to him about something. The honest man Baji, who had been standing by, was bewildered when he heard the name Gus. Captain, who is Gus? Aren't we the only 2 going out today? It seems that there is no one named Gus among the slaves we bought back. Apparently, in the blink of an eye, he had completely forgotten about Gus. Money-hungry Gus didn't go far. Just as he was about to leave, the crew of the Golden Deer had just started their meal. He had been hungry for the whole morning, so he just sat down at the table. When Byron found him in person, he was feasting on the Golden Hind's specialty, pancakes with black pepper mutton soup. It is also specially provided for the crew members, and the captain does not eat it. With the pancake in one hand and the soup spoon in the other, he ate with great relish. As expected, except Byron himself, no one else noticed that there was someone around him. "Ah, Captain, you're here." Gus picked up the bowl and drank up the mutton soup, then patted his belly contentedly. When he looked up, he saw Byron sitting quietly beside him, looking at him with eyes full of rare goods are worth hoarding. He quickly put down the soup bowl and greeted him awkwardly. "Well, the food we cooked is so delicious, I can't help it. I really can't help it. But I will never eat free food from my friends." As he spoke, he pointed to the long cedar table in the inn, where the 2 copper coins that 8 Fingers had given him, which had not yet warmed up, were placed. Although he was not discovered by anyone, he had no intention of running away. Maybe it's what he said before: "Actually, I don't like money, what I really like is freedom and dignity. It just happens that money brings freedom and dignity. It is indeed what I really think." Byron believed that if he had this ability since childhood, he might not have the self-control that he did to eat for free from the slave guild. If it were someone else, they might have already become a regular customer of shops, banks, or even women's bath houses. Who wouldn't like to be friends with someone who has a bottom line like this? Even bad guys might prefer to make friends with such guys more than good guys. Byron took the 2 copper coins, smiled, and stretched out his hand to him, and said sincerely, "Mr. Gus, I wonder if you are interested in joining the Golden Deer and working for me. Michael is not good at judging people, but he is an excellent judge of people's abilities." The logbook clearly states, "I was born with the shielded presence of the assassin profession, but I accidentally lost my only anchor during the process of growing up. Not only will you not be able to become a transcendent person, you may even suddenly disappear from this world one day. Unless we find someone who can always remember him, it will be possible to get everything back on track. It is not easy to find such a person and tie a strong enough anchor. Otherwise, Guts would not have failed 887 times in a row." Actually, Byron couldn't do it either. It was purely because the ship's log that was connected to spirituality had a magical effect. Let me give you an example using his cognition. Gus has a constant function of automatically clearing the cache. As long as someone turns their head, the information he left in their consciousness will be automatically cleared. As time goes by, those old acquaintances who have known each other since childhood and whose anchor chains are far more stable than strangers are gradually forgetting him. When no one in this world remembers Guts anymore, he will probably disappear from this world completely without a trace. But Byron can check external historical records at any time through echoes of history, just like remembering them in his own mind. It's nothing more than the difference between a hard disk and an external mobile hard disk. "Captain, I am willing to serve you." Faced with Byron's recruitment, Gus agreed without any hesitation, and immediately stood up and shook Byron's hand vigorously. He really did dream of finding someone who would not forget him. "I had originally planned to take it slow and use my special talents to conquer Byron, but I didn't expect the surprise to come so quickly. As long as he completes the anchoring with Byron through the Pirate 10 Commandments, he can prepare for the promotion ceremony and try to actively control his abilities. You don't have to worry about being forgotten by your acquaintances anymore. Great, I can finally get my job and become a real assassin. Assassin from the Colosseum sequence. The most representative of this sequence is the gladiator, which is also one of the oldest professions that has survived to the present day. Based on the fighting style and weapons used, they are divided into 3 branches: Momoro fighters, Thracian fighters, and net fighters. It is said that the first assassin was born in the arena during the First Empire. The Thracian gladiators, who were usually best at using short swords and daggers, gathered together and suddenly assassinated the politicians who came to make fun of them. He also became the ancestor of all modern assassins. Sequence motto: Live towards death. Guts, who possesses the powerful talent of shielding presence, is destined to be either a great thief or the king of assassination, and is a perfect match for this sequence. However, after recognizing his rare talent, Byron helped him choose another path. Several hundred years ago in the central part of the continent, the Eagle's Nest Assassin group created a powerful new profession, Eagle's Nest Assassin. He almost dominated an era with his terrifying assassination ability, and the assassination campaigns he launched made all the powerful people on the continent tremble in fear. He is proficient in swordsmanship, disguise, assassination, theft, traps, and explosives. One of the most iconic abilities is the Eagle Leap, which allows you to jump from a building no matter how high it is without dying as long as you hold a pigeon feather in your hand. After being wiped out by the knights who were on the westward expedition organized by the church, the corresponding prerequisite knowledge, training manuals, and promotion ceremonies of the Eagle's Nest Assassin group were also seized. It fell into the hands of high-level officials of various countries on the continent, and in the following hundreds of years, it underwent adaptive transformation along different routes. The inheritance held by the Lancaster family is called Phantom Blade. Able to freely control one's own sense of existence. You can manipulate illusions at low sequences, and even give illusions a sense of presence at mid-sequences. The small dagger can be transformed into a door panel sword in seconds, killing people with your imagination. Not only an assassin, but also the most perfect scout and intelligence agent. Byron is now so poor that all he has left is the extraordinary knowledge in his head. As long as there is a chance to turn it into power or wealth, he will never miss it. Just when he was about to paint a bright future for Guts as the king of assassins and encourage him to work hard for himself. Correct. Guts suddenly looked up at Byron, rubbing his hands and smiling flatteringly. Captain, since I am now one of your own, can you please return the 2 coppers for my board? Chapter 47. Long live the Captain! Since we are going to hold a boarding ceremony for Guts, use the pirate's 10 commandments to help him anchor. Then just let all the newly recruited crew members join the team together. After lunch, Byron gathered all the current crew members of the Golden Deer in the huge dry dock that he had rented. Including a dozen old crew members who have been working in the shipyard, more than 20 free pirates who were just recruited today, and a dozen slaves. The total number of new and old crew members is 56. The shipwright Hans and his son, the honest man 8 Fingers, the trainee navigators Thomas and Perry, and the assassin Gus, these tested pirate officers stood at the front. Byron glanced at the whole audience and nodded silently. Whether we can fight or not is another matter, but at least the stormtroopers, sailors, gunners, and other departments have been able to set up their structures. To be honest, those free pirates who had been picked out by countless captains were really hard to describe under his critical eyes. One word: mediocrity. However, the quality of this batch of slaves is obviously higher. Being able to survive the harsh living conditions and extremely high mortality rate of sea transportation means that at least there is no problem with physical fitness. With a little training, they can become good junior sailors. Among the native slaves, a young man named Wyandotte stood out in particular. Although he had not spoken much, echoes of history showed that he not only could speak the common language, but the other indigenous slaves also all followed him. They may even possess some extraordinary knowledge among the indigenous tribes. It's just that spirituality has not yet awakened, and knowledge cannot be transformed into power. Don't worry, there will be bread and milk. Byron's eyes swept across the faces of everyone in the crowd, seeing them clearly and distinctly, as if they were all familiar to each other, as if they had been known each other for several years. Then he turned around and took out a thick book from a box. A ferocious skull symbolizing the pirate code is inlaid on the hardcover cover. It is the Pirate 10 Commandments of the Golden Deer. It's not as petty as the man-eating shark, which only has 1 piece of parchment in total. Instead, it was a huge book made up of 100 pages of parchment and as big as a brick. The two structures are obviously completely different. Byron's ambition is to build a pirate group, a pirate fleet, or even a military dispatch company that can decide the life and death of a country. He believed that sooner or later, it would be filled with the names of pirates. He opened the cover to all the pirates. On the first gilded page with lace, the 10 Commandments of the Golden Hind were written. 1. Everyone has equal voting rights, but the captain's orders must be strictly followed. 2. Everyone is treated equally, the capable are promoted and the mediocre are demoted. 9. The betrayer will die, but everyone's talent will not be buried. By accumulating merits, you can obtain resources, extraordinary knowledge, and promotion ceremonies. 15. All loot shall not be kept privately, and the captain shall receive %. The 10 Commandments may be amended after a vote by all crew members. Little Hans, the shipwright who had the highest cultural level and was determined to join the ranks of the tower, stood nearby and read every word to the pirates in the audience. The profit-sharing ratio that the pirates care most about is not much different from that of other pirate ships. This was stated during the recruitment process and they had no objections. But when the pirates heard the unprecedented 9th rule, everyone's breathing became heavier. As long as you accumulate merits, you can obtain resources, extraordinary knowledge, and promotion ceremonies. Resources such as awakening potions and spices represent the possibility of spiritual awakening. Spirituality, extraordinary knowledge, and the promotion ceremony mean a complete extraordinary prerequisite. It is also the beginning of stepping onto the stairway of glory and bidding farewell to the masses. Even if it was just the lighthouse sequence pirates which was the most numerous and had the lowest threshold in the ocean, it was not something that mediocre people like them dared to dream of in the past. Even those talented people who want to pass that hurdle have to sign a strict contract with the captain. Just like a donkey with a carrot hanging in front of it, it may not be able to eat it even if it works until it dies. Perhaps, only in large pirate groups, or in the teams of pirate kings who have begun to pay attention to the cultivation of talents, will this merit mechanism be fixed as a universal law. Captain, is this all true? We also have the hope of becoming extraordinary people? We don't need a harsh contract, we just need to work hard to establish merits, right? Captain. It was already late autumn, but the dock seemed to be lit up with a blazing bonfire, and the enthusiasm of the pirates almost set the house on fire. Even the slaves who had lost hope in life immediately lit up their eyes after learning that they also had the same rights. Byron raised one hand, letting everyone see his palm, and solemnly promised, of course. There is no doubt about that, now that I have written it in the 10 Commandments of Pirates, it is endorsed by the Pirate Code of the Pirate Emperor. In the future, we will continue to implement it resolutely and without compromise. This is my promise to you, and I hope your performance will live up to this commandment. Silver Law not only blocked the chaotic source tides and various dangers for mankind, but also completely solidified the social structure on the continent. There were dozens or even hundreds of kingdoms and principalities, large and small, but the throne had always been inherited through law and blood, and no common people had ever been able to successfully steal the country. The situation is similar in the middle and lower classes, with more wolves than meat, and even the second sons and illegitimate children of the nobles cannot be accommodated. It is extremely difficult for ordinary people to achieve class transition. Byron knew best that once the steps to advancement were opened, and the many people at the bottom of society who had been suppressed for so long saw the hope of rising, what kind of terrifying power would erupt. Even if someone wanted to do this in the past, they would definitely not be able to do it. Because on a continent without unclaimed land, there is no supply of additional resources. But in the age of discovery, on the vast ocean, everything is possible. Piracy happens to be a profession where the fittest survive. Given basic conditions, the strong ones survive and the weak ones are eliminated. What Byron had to do was to dig out gold from the slag, or at worst, pig iron or brass, which would be of use. From pirate to king, his ancestors had done it once, and he was ready to do it again. Dong dong dong. The scabbard was stuck on the ground, and everyone fell silent. In addition to the tangible material benefits, Byron also gave the pirates, who were clearly already insane, a pair of wings of ideals. No matter how humble a knight is, he will yearn to ride a white horse and a silver spear one day, to protect the girl of his hometown, and then to die heroically. No matter how ordinary a person is, he or she has dreamed of standing on top of a mountain one day, holding great power, and competing with the most unruly heroes in the world. What do people fear most in their life? What I fear most is that when I can no longer move, I am still doing nothing and still comfort myself that being ordinary is precious. What does it mean to have no desire? Only when you have something and succeed can you be called no desire. Look at those shrewd people in the castles and palaces today. How are they better than you, except for having a good father and a good surname, you? My friends, why can't you take his place? When this guy got angry, he even cursed himself, and the effect was immediate. Who? Damn it! Long live the captain! Long live! After 2 lifetimes of experience, Byron has mastered the art of drawing cakes to perfection, much better than Salmon's. Just jump and you can touch the first pie, instead of it being far away in the sky. By the time everyone had left their fingerprints on the 10 Commandments of pirates and had done their jobs, they were all full of energy and enthusiasm, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Even if they were asked to attack the York family's navy, they would not frown at all. Byron reappointed the personnel. Old Hans, the shipwright, had grown old and remained in his position, while young Hans, who was still in the learning stage, worked part-time as a warehouse keeper and chef. The honest Eight Fingers served as the bosun leading the assault team. Trainee navigators Thomas and Perry served as the sail and cable master and navigation master respectively. The assassin Gus was promoted to second officer, responsible for assassination and intelligence. The position of first mate was left to Brooke, who had not yet recovered. Then Byron assigned tasks to everyone. The crew needs to spend half a day every day in the dock to repair the ship together, striving to shorten the half-month maintenance time by at least 1/3 to ensure that they can advance and retreat at any time. During the remaining half-day, he was taught the fisher sword technique by Little Hans, Eight Fingers, and other pirate officers. After all, Byron came from the regular army like the Royal Naval Academy, so he was more far-sighted than other pirate captains. Basic training is provided to them free of charge, and it depends on themselves whether they can stand out in the end. Even so, praise the captain has become a catchphrase for many people. Golden Deer has finally gotten back on track. Once this makeshift team experiences a battle, kills an enemy, and survives, they will become a useful fighting force. Moreover, if there are not enough people, the technology can make up for it. Byron's biggest expectation now is actually the world-leading hybrid sailboat, the Golden Hind. Title can bring power. If it can solidify its position as the world's best speedster after the transformation, it will definitely gain unexpected huge benefits. Now that the internal situation is settled, he can focus on dealing with those privateering captains. Chapter 48. Wild Hunt. Time flies and it is already early November. Although Iron Anchor Bay does not belong to the northern part of the Eternal Night Peninsula, which is in polar night for dozens of days a year. Every November, there is still a very obvious phenomenon of shorter days and longer nights. The sun rises at 10 in the morning and it is already pitch dark at 3 in the afternoon. In total, the daylight hours are only 5 or 6 hours. However, as the day for the Captain's Council to elect the North Sea pirate warlord draws closer, Anchor Bay becomes more and more lively. Moreover, for some unknown reason, the number of pirate ships participating in the Captain's Council election this year is at least 1/5 more than in previous years. It's not just the berths in the port where numerous pirate flags are flying. Even the anchorage with poor conditions and no pier was crowded with all kinds of pirate ships. The huge influx of people naturally brings huge wealth. As high-quality customers who were mostly not short of money and never saved, countless pirates made all walks of life in Anchor Bay more prosperous than ever before. Night Casino welcomes you. Gentlemen, we at Tulip Love have the hottest girls and the most fragrant rum. We guarantee that you will be satisfied. Please come in. We have brought in beauties of all races to our Pink Theatre. Ballet dancers from the East Coast, belly dancers from the West Coast, war dances from the Bantayan Islands. You name it, we have it all. I can't say anything else, but the girls in our succubus hut must be wearing the least. Oh! It was just afternoon when the sunset appeared in the sky. Groups of pirates immediately rushed into the prostitute street. And most of them will never come out again until they have spent all their money. However, as business was booming, the security situation in Anchor Bay inevitably plummeted. On the streets of Prostitute Street, a grey-haired sheriff, with a worn-out walnut pipe in his mouth, took a deep drag on the burning, low-quality tobacco. In the past 3 days, there have been 21 missing persons reported in the Prostitute Street that I am responsible for, including some extraordinary persons. Pirates have countless mortal enemies because of competition for prey, shipping routes, and resources. Mutual hatred is a common occurrence. Moreover, with a large number of pirates gathering here, the conditions for creating legendary level are better than ever before. Any slight noise can spread quickly throughout the North Sea. I heard that recently more than a dozen new names have suddenly emerged, such as Gunpowder Artist, Ripper, Faceless Man, Wild Hunt, etc. Although we have lowered the warning level continuously, we will not pursue the matter as long as the murder is not carried out openly and the body is not left on the streets. But there are too many pirates this year, and by the time the elections begin in the middle of this month, we don't know how bad the security situation will be. Even this official is worried about the public security situation, which is gradually getting out of control. Of course, what he cared about was not the pirates who were extremely vicious and lived on the edge of a knife, but the people of Bydaiwan who lived here. Unlike other ethnic groups on the mainland, they never converted to the church. They still believe in primitive religions, consider themselves to be the people of the god of prophecy, kingship, and wild hunt, and maintain the most primitive living conditions of the people of the Northland Bay. It is said that ordinary civilians in other blocks have been affected by the fight, and it is not yet entirely certain who the perpetrator is. The Ripper and the Faceless Man are the most likely suspects, but they are also the most elusive, so the law enforcement team is stepping up their hunt for them. Although the Captain's Council, pilots, and the police had made preparations in advance, they were still unable to withstand the unexpectedly large number of pirates. And I always feel that the wind direction within the Captain's Council is not right. Hey, Mr. Whale Hunter, where on earth have you been? If you, the North Sea Pirate King, had the iron law of the king and the guards to suppress the Iron Anchor Bay, how could such an out-of-control situation have occurred? Although the eldest lady is a genius in the field of supernormality, she is already a mid-sequence supernormal person at a young age. But our current warlord is ill and about to step down, and she alone can't suppress those restless pirates. The North Sea Pirate King Whale Hunter, the pilot who guards the port gate, and the sheriff are all from the Bay of Nations on this island. We are deeply bound to this last pirate port in the North Sea, and we prosper and suffer together. Before retiring, the sheriff was a member of the Pirate King's ship and an extraordinary person in the pirate profession. How could he not see the crisis that even the shipwright old Hans could see? Uncle Weber, why are you sighing again? Where is the demeanor of the former Pirate King's crew? Come, I brought you a bottle of good wine. The weather is getting colder. Want to try it? A plain-looking young man sat down on the bench next to the sheriff and handed him a bottle of Bacardi rum. The latter took the wine very naturally and took a big gulp. While exhaling a strong breath of alcohol, he did not forget to give the young man a blank look. For a miser like you to come and offer your courtesy, it's definitely not out of conscience. Let me think, 2 days ago, you suddenly asked me to do something for you. Was it to find the information of all the privateer ships entering the port in Hattings? What is the purpose of your visit this time? Hearing this, Guts not only did not feel embarrassed at all, but he climbed up the pole and rubbed his hands to please as expected of Uncle Weber who watched me grow up. He hit the nail on the head. Nothing else, it's just that the whalebone amulet silence you gave me last time has become ineffective, you see. The sheriff casually threw a whalebone amulet to him and said impatiently. Okay, my quota is not much, so use it sparingly when you steal. Get out of here, get out of here. Looking at Guts's disappearing figure, he was still worried and reminded him. If you get into trouble, run away. Don't expect me to clean up your mess. Do you hear me? As an elder, his advice is full of Taiwanese style. While others would tell their juniors not to get into trouble when they go out, he, as the sheriff, was clearly instructing Gus that as long as he didn't get caught, he wouldn't be in trouble. Got it, Uncle. Gus just waved his hand nonchalantly, and just after taking 3 steps, he suddenly disappeared. Sheriff Weber had no idea how close he had come to forgetting about Gus completely. But one can clearly feel that this child who he has watched grow up seems to be a little different. After nightfall, there is a bar street in the other corner of the town. A man with a scimitar on his waist and an eye patch on one eye, who fits the typical image of a pirate, staggered into an alley, hiccuping. There were 2 men following behind him, looking around vigilantly. Why did the captain order us to return to the ship to rest at night? I was just having a good time drinking, you guys are really spoiling my mood. The 2 men tried to persuade the drunkard with bitter faces. Mr. First Mate, you are not unaware that the Wild Hunt has suddenly appeared and launched crazy attacks recently. Among the victims there were both ordinary pirates and extraordinary ones. The captains have just summarized all the information and have confirmed that the other party is targeting our privateering alliance, and all the victims are our people. Although you are a powerful first-level pirate, it is always better to be careful. Wild Hunt was originally a legend that had been circulating in the Evernight Peninsula for a long time. A group of ghostly or supernatural hunters pursue their prey recklessly. No one is spared when they encounter them. It will surely disappear without a trace from this world. Usually the appearance of Wild Hunt also foreshadows some natural disasters, such as war and plague. Identity unknown. There are various speculations about the Wild Hunt. It may be the undead, wild beasts, or some say it is a primitive god. The king of the Wild Hunt is usually regarded as another name for Woden, the god of prophecy, kingship, and the Wild Hunt worshipped by the Taiwanese. Because in this serial murder case, no one ever saw what the perpetrator looked like, and all the victims disappeared without a trace, and no body was ever found. Moreover, even the extremely high-level divination technique could not find any clues about the other party, which did not seem to be human-induced. The name Wild Hunt spread among the crew members of the privateer ship. After hearing his men's advice, the pirate's first mate fell silent and focused on his journey. Who among normal people is not afraid of death? However, as he walked, his expression suddenly changed. Because there was another footstep behind me. Chapter 49, Feint to the east and attack in the west, Blood Holy Grail. The one-eyed first mate had heard many legends about the various monsters and evil spirits on this sea. After realizing something was wrong, he did not look back immediately. He knew that it was absolutely taboo to turn around suddenly when he was not sure what the other party was. Instead, he continued to walk forward 2 steps as if nothing had happened. The extraordinary person's keen senses were mobilized by him, and he held his breath and paid close attention to the footsteps behind him. The Pirate of the Lighthouse sequence obtains 3 abilities at the Squire level: Weapon Mastery, Mountain Goat Footsteps, and Blind Fighting Expert. The Perception ability is absolutely first class. 2? Yes, it is indeed 2, not 3. I must have drunk too much just now, and I accidentally had an illusion. When he tried to distinguish carefully, he found that there were only 2 footsteps. He heaved a sigh of relief and secretly blamed himself for being too suspicious. However, before he could take another 2 steps, he heard the footsteps behind him suddenly drop to only 1. The one-eyed first mate couldn't help but shiver, and the alcohol in his body was half sobered up in an instant. My pace involuntarily quickened a bit. The footsteps behind him were like a shadow. When he was fast, his footsteps were fast, and when he was slow, his footsteps were slow. What was even more horrifying was that just when he could no longer suppress the fear in his heart and was about to run away, the footsteps behind him suddenly turned into 2. Asshole! Who on earth is behind this? How dare you tease me, one-eyed dragon Arnold? The extreme fear finally turned into a roar of anger. He no longer cared about any taboos and turned his head away angrily. But he unexpectedly saw Tom, one of his 2 men, looking at him with an innocent face. What's wrong, first mate? You're walking so fast, I can hardly keep up with you. Seeing Tom's familiar face, one-eyed man finally breathed a sigh of relief. I also began to suspect that the unscrupulous bar owner had added some hallucinogenic contraband into the wine I drank today, which was why I had hallucinations again and again. However, before he could completely relax, his heart suddenly became tense again, and he asked the henchman in front of him sternly. Where's Jerry? Why are you alone? He clearly remembered that there were 2 footsteps behind him before he turned around just now, but when he turned around, there was only 1 of his men left. Isn't this even more terrifying? As soon as he finished speaking, a vague voice sounded behind him. First mate, are you looking for me? But the voice was not from his subordinate Jerry at all. Ah! Are you the one behind this? Go to hell! His mentality went up and down like a roller coaster, and finally one-eyed dragon completely collapsed and suddenly drew his sword. The knife light exploded like lightning in the night, drawing a bright arc and slashing behind him. Even without turning around, his strike was as precise as if he had eyes on the back of his head, and it went straight to the opponent's head where the sound came from. In fact, ordinary people need to break an inherent stereotype. Most of those one-eyed men wearing eye patches on pirate ships are not really blind. The reason for wearing an eye mask is that there is no shade at sea, the light is often very strong, and the interior of the cabin is dark and cramped. During a robbery or battle, if one suddenly enters the cabin from the deck and his eyes cannot adapt to the light changes in time, he will be easily ambushed and lose his life. Wearing an eye patch makes a big difference. When the environment changes, the pirate only needs to move the eye patch to the other side, exposing the eye that has adapted to the darkness, and can adjust the combat status in the first time. This is also the key reason why the ability Blind Fight Expert becomes a must-have for pirates. Not only can it adapt to the environment, but it can also help pirates wage night battles in dim light and catch merchant sailors off guard. However, the one-eyed dragon, who had lost his composure, overlooked a very serious problem. Who said that there was only one wild hunt who came to attack him? Just as the one-eyed dragon drew his sword and slashed backwards, his chest was wide open. The subordinate standing in front of him also suddenly drew his sword. Clang, step forward and thrust forward. Among the 3 basic attack postures of slashing, stabbing, and cutting, it is the most powerful and easiest to dodge. But at this time, the one-eyed dragon had no way to dodge or avoid it. The bone-chilling sword light condensed into a line, freezing the one-eyed dragon's dazed face like frost, and instantly pierced his heart and lungs. Byron's swordsmanship was already outstanding, and after obtaining the passive ability Swordsmanship Mastery of Storm Knight, it reached a new level. After the blow hit him, Byron immediately drew his sword and stepped back. Guts, who was attracting attention behind the one-eyed dragon, let out a strange cry and easily dodged the blade that had lost its accuracy. He instantly leaned forward and stabbed the dagger in his hand deeply into the back of his head. Successfully finished off the enemy. One-eyed dragon didn't even react the entire time. This was a carefully designed trap. His face was blank, and he fell to the ground with a thump. Byron saw through the ship's log that his history had completely come to an end, and then he called Gus forward. "This is the 6th attendant. I have gathered all the materials for the wine-making ceremony. How is your ascension ceremony going?" Obviously, Byron is the Wild Hunt who has recently become famous in Anchor Bay. Moreover, Wild Hunt originally represents a group of hunters. When he hunted privateer pirates, he never acted alone, but with Guts, who was preparing to take up the post of Phantom Blade. After all, Byron is now a pirate captain who has built a team based on his dreams, not a lonely ranger. Why fight alone when you have thugs available? Byron believed that accepting Gus, a local tyrant with extensive connections, was the wisest decision he had made. Whether it is intelligence support, the silent amulet or his own abilities, they are all impeccable. There is no problem with spiritual awakening and prior knowledge. It's just that maybe it's because my presence is naturally too low, so the series of ritual, the Phantom Killer's serial murders has to continue. If it only targets first-level servants, the 6-ring chain is obviously not enough. It will probably take 8 or 10 consecutive rings to gain enough presence and re-anchor the Silver Law. Gus scratched his hair in annoyance. The Phantom Blade that he was about to take over was indeed a superior profession to the assassin. Even with Byron's help to beat the opponent to low health first and then let him finish off the opponent, the ceremony was extremely difficult to progress. Phantom Blade. The core ability of the second-level professional level is called Phantom Blade. You can control visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, and ultimately your sense of existence. Imagine a musket out of thin air, give it a sense of existence, and you can really use it to kill people. Imagine that you have a varying number of phantom limbs, and you can use them to wield a sword easily. The promotion ceremony the Phantom Killer's serial murders is deliberately mysterious, like a magic trick, in which the person is killed without knowing the reason. Only in this way can you kill the target and take away some of his sense of existence at the same time. Not only can it strengthen itself, but even if the victim's body is thrown on the street, no one will be able to find it. And Byron's cognitive correction is enough to allow him to guest star as a mysterious killer with ever-changing skills. Even though the upper limit of the disguised object can only be the same level, it is almost impossible to be seen through by clairvoyance under the protection of Storm Signet Ring. Just now, the two of them cooperated with each other and achieved the effect of encountering a ghost. When he heard 3 footsteps, Byron came behind the one-eyed man. With 2 footsteps, he had already killed one of his men, and Guts dragged the man away. With a sound, the last minion was eliminated. When the sound changed back to 2, both of them were hanging behind the one-eyed dragon, and they also had the follow-up fatal attack. Of course, the realization of this strange effect is also inseparable from the help of the Anchor Bay specialty whalebone amulet Silence. It is said that a series of whalebone amulets are the unique taboo knowledge of the North Sea pirate king whale hunter, and only the direct members of Anchor Bay are qualified to learn them. There is no way to get contraband like the silent amulet that is specifically used to do bad things. Without waiting for Byron's orders, the money grubber Gus had already taken away all the valuables from the one-eyed dragon. Even the leather jacket, brass buttons, eye mask, and even a bank deposit slip smelling of stinky salted fish hidden in the insole were not left out. These are not money, but Gus's freedom and dignity, which must not be thrown on the ground casually. Byron also reviewed the history of the one-eyed dragon and merged it with the history of the other souls who died under the sword. On the last day of October, all the pirate ships under the Hadding's privateering alliance have arrived. Today, the first day of November, a member of the Captain's Council convened a meeting of all privateering captains who were eligible to vote. There will be a big move soon. Secret, the Admiralty's conspiracy, historical influence 20. The original decoding density was 18%, and it instantly jumped to 35%. It's confirmed. These guys are colluding with each other. Are they finally going to take action? Byron shook his head and decided to do the most important thing first. Let Gus step aside and be on guard. He used the uncoagulated blood of the one-eyed dragon to draw a ritual array on the ground with a hexagram as the main body and many runes interwoven. There are words in his mouth. Blood is power, blood is life, blood is the source, blood is everything. Take the blood of the lamb and put it on my heart, cleanse me, so that I can be whiter than snow. Take the blood of my enemies and put it on my hands to strengthen me so that I can be stronger than a bear. This is the ritual for brewing transmutation blood, blood holy grail. Chapter 50. Wait, what the hell is tentacle fetish? Put the blood of the Supreme Being on my forehead and look after me, so that I may be closer to greatness. As Byron's curse echoed through the alley, the magic circle was suddenly filled with a strong bloody smell that was far beyond the blood volume of one person. But there were 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. The strong smell of blood filled the nasal cavity, as if the whole person was soaked in a pool of blood. The runes mixed in the hexagram twisted and deformed like blood flowing in deformed blood vessels, emitting a dazzling blood light. Within the entire scope of the blood holy grail ritual, the visualized world was extracted and distorted. The crooked alleys seemed to have become the esophagus of some giant creature, and the irregular stone slabs on the ground became a sticky and bumpy tongue coating. The feeling of weightlessness, accompanied by waves of dizziness, attacked Byron's brain. It seemed that if he accidentally stepped on empty air, he would slide down the esophagus into the stomach of some supergiant creature. Byron had repeated the same operation 5 times and was not moved at all by the strange scene before his eyes, which actually only occurred on the spiritual level. There is no bloodshed in the real world. However, the anchor that bound him tightly to the silver law had quietly tightened at some point. Apparently the force that was causing him to fall downwards wasn't just a complete illusion. Blood. Holy Grail, concrete. Byron lost no time in reciting the final spell. The blood light in the ritual suddenly came alive, like countless blood-red tadpoles with sharp teeth, or countless tiny insects that were barely detectable. It spread towards the very fresh corpse of the one-eyed dragon. After a series of strange rustling sounds, only a fist-sized ball of blood essence was left on the spot. Byron quickly took off the oxhorn wine cup from his belt. Wonderful item, Warrior's Cup. Effect: 1. The volume is much larger than its appearance, and can hold a large amount of liquids in different categories, but it is limited to liquids. 2. It can separate and aggregate various components in the liquid. And pronounced its judgment inscription, a clear spring is pouring out. During this time, the blood essences of 5 other extraordinary victims who died at his hands emerged. They fall on the other 5 corners of the hexagram respectively. 6 extraordinary beings took their positions as sacrifices, and the blood in the ritual seemed to be ignited. They burned fiercely and condensed into a golden red holy grail inlaid with gorgeous gems just above the hexagram. With the naked eye, the cup was slowly filled with bright red liquid. It was the blood brew used to cure Brook transmutation blood. Byron stretched out his hand and a whole cup of blood fell into the oxhorn cup in his hand, and the bloody light of the ceremony collapsed. The abstract world before my eyes also returned to its normal state. Looking at the transmutation blood in the cup, Byron's face showed an expression of joy that was hard to conceal. Like the base wine, the raw materials needed for each type of blood brew require the bodies and souls of intelligent creatures. Efficacy: homogeneous transformation. Different raw materials transform in different directions, different from the ones Salmon had in stock before. This transmutation blood brewed with 6 extraordinary beings as materials naturally exudes a faint blood-colored aura. It is a top-grade extraordinary material, incomparable to ordinary materials. It should be enough to exchange the lives of 6 first-level extraordinary people for Brook's life. When he raised his left hand, he saw a blood-red tattoo in the shape of a holy grail appearing on his palm. This is a fixed ritual symbol. At the beginning, Salmon, who failed to obtain the complete forbidden knowledge, could only use the Bloody Mary's gourmet recipe to launch an extremely simple ceremony. Every time transmutation blood is needed, a specific chef must be eaten using very complicated means, which is extremely inefficient. Byron didn't need to go to all that trouble. He pointed the holy grail in his palm at the 2 pirates who had been knocked unconscious, and spat out a simplified bite fur. A familiar burst of blood instantly covered their bodies. In just a few breaths, only 2 drops of suspended transmutation blood remained. It is natural, green, and pollution-free, and there is no need for Gus, the sheriff, to do any cleanup. Although these 2 drops of blood wine are far inferior to the finished products brewed by extraordinary people, they are the most convenient and easily available on the sea full of blood and killing. Byron would never kill innocent people, but he had no psychological burden in killing his enemies. He turned around and walked out of the alley, not even glancing at the assassination scene behind him. I really like the title of Wild Hunt you gave me, and Blood and Wild Hunt should really be the standard. Let's continue to welcome the blood feast. After fully interpreting Bloody Mary's gourmet recipes and comparing it with the orthodox ladder of glory, Byron also understood the promotion system of forbidden knowledge. Although black magic has broken through the limitations of the silver law, it actually has its own advancement path. As he gains a better grasp of the forbidden knowledge in the future, he will be able to successfully refine more and more blood wine. It can even transform all of its own blood into transmutation blood or even scarlet aura. There is no need to mix cocktails, just a drop of blood can produce the effects of various premium blood brews. If only the legendary final ritual Scarlet Holy Grail could be performed in its entirety and brew a cup of blood of eternal life. It can also allow one to completely break through the shackles of human beings and gain strength, speed, and reaction capabilities that far exceed human limits. Cure all kinds of diseases in the body, and even achieve immortality. Theoretically, there will be no more death due to exhaustion of lifespan. To put it simply, each promotion node has a corresponding ceremony. The kind of ceremony you hold will determine the level you can reach, and you will gradually achieve a transformation in the essence of life. Previously, Salman wanted to follow this path based on what he had learned from the bloodthirsty cult. In the end, he couldn't even achieve the pathetic goal. Unlike the seemingly severely simplified stairs of glory, forbidden knowledge is more like what supernatural power should be like. What's more, this is immortality. Byron couldn't help but think of his uncle, the Mad King. If he had drunk this eternal blood and cured his hereditary mental illness, perhaps nothing that is happening now would have happened. If such a thing appeared on the continent, it would surely drive all the kings and bishops crazy about it, just like the legendary Fountain of Youth on the sea. It's a pity that this final ritual is not included in Bloody Mary's recipe. Perhaps further gains could be gained by searching for the bloodthirsty cult that Salman defected from. Byron plans to sort out Salman's belongings when he has time to try to find any clues. Of course, even if the complete ritual could be found in the future, reproducing it would certainly require extremely harsh conditions. And when he takes the initiative to leave the protection of the silver law and study the forbidden knowledge in depth, all the risks involved must be borne by himself. Risks. Side effects. Thinking of this, Byron shuddered. I remembered that after performing the ritual, I had not checked what specific side effects I would have to bear. Gluttony. Lust. My heart couldn't help but beat violently. He couldn't enter a meditative state or check his own status. He could only prepare to secretly take a look at his logbook as if he was going to the execution ground. Sudden. Ba chirp. Byron turned his head slowly. He saw Gus, who was sitting at the corner at the end of the alley waiting for him, and Eight Fingers, who had been in charge of logistics work in the past few days, each grabbing a handful of skewers and eating them with relish. It was obvious that Eight Fingers had brought them some midnight snacks for their hard work. Even though it was only 8 o'clock in the evening, there were still drunk people everywhere across the street. Wrapped in the dripping sauce, the curled red octopus legs seemed to have vitality jumping on the tip of the tongue, tender and elastic. Extremely tempting. Extremely tempting. Gulp, what are you two eating? Byron's throat suddenly felt dry, and he couldn't help but walk towards the grilled squid in the hands of the two men. He was totally unaware that the side effects of learning forbidden knowledge were already shown in the ship's log. One good news, one bad news. The good news is that Byron has only one downside, tentacle fetish. Bad news, this strange fetish combines gluttony and lust. Chapter 51. In order to catch the gradually merging privateering alliance off guard and prevent them from coming to their senses, Byron and his crew sent out second-level extraordinary people to ambush themselves. He did not dare to rest for several days and worked overtime to carry out serial assassinations everywhere. Finally, I completed the small goal I had set today and brewed the transmutation blood. Although the night is still long, I decided to stop and rest for a day. Gather your strength and heal Guardian Knight Brook, your right-hand man, first. Wait until the privateering alliance lets down their guard before striking back and killing him. More efficient and safer. Moreover, Byron summarized the intelligence read from the previous victims. It is already known that the reason why privateering captains collectively entered the Anchor Bay was to join the army of a certain member of the Captain's Council, to assist in the voting and fighting and to send him to the throne of the North Sea Governor. Subconsciously, he began to search the logbook for the ship registration information that Gus had obtained from Sheriff Weber. Prepare to select a suitable unlucky guy, infiltrate the ranks of the privateering alliance, and offer his loyalty to the congressman who has defected to the York family. It's still easier to get things done if you have someone in the court. The intelligence that Guts collected included not only the arrival time of the privateering ships, the number of crew members, and the major pirate leaders, but also a copy of their wanted warrants. It saved me a lot of effort. When they reached an intersection, the three of them cautiously went into a busy alley and retreated separately. Even if there are hunters in the wilderness sequence, don't think of catching them in this complex smell environment. Byron snatched all the grilled squids from the two men's hands, and instinctively walked into the street full of perfume-filled prostitutes, eating as he walked. It smells so good, I never thought that one day squid could become addictive. The side effects of Blood Holy Grail are beginning to show. However, unlike Blood Eye Salmon's gluttony and Magic Mirror West's cleanliness, Byron's side effects are obviously milder. To be precise, the Silver Law has come into effect simultaneously. At the beginning, he relied on the bloody ritual to plunder Salmon's ability Blood Holy Grail, obtained the protection of the law, and greatly weakened the negative effects of forbidden knowledge. Combining the description in the ship log, Byron found that his solidified symptoms were somewhat like a variation of the uncanny valley effect. Which emotion is produced depends purely on the proportion of the two elements of tentacles and people. Human non-human indescribable thing with tentacles purebred octopus, squid, etc. The first two will produce emotions of liking, while the latter two will produce appetite. Even when others saw the indescribable things and their SAN values dropped wildly, Byron just wanted to feast on them. The love for tentacles has gradually shifted to neutral qualities such as soft as boneless and light and soft. Of course, human and monster beauties are still his current favorites, if these magical creatures really exist overseas. The legal system represents the anchor that stabilizes itself, while forbidden knowledge represents the sail that breaks out of the safety zone and rides the wind and waves. While raising the sail, be sure to also tie the anchor tightly to avoid capsizing in the wind and waves. Moreover, the recipe says that as long as the ritual of the Scarlet Holy Grail is successfully performed, all previous side effects will be further weakened. Now, in addition to immortality, Byron has another motivation to obtain the ritual Scarlet Holy Grail. What? But at this moment, Byron suddenly smelled a very fresh and strong smell of blood, which made him feel alarmed. When I looked up, I saw a figure who looked like a street magician walking towards me on the busy prostitute street. His face was covered with a silver full-face mask, he wore a top hat, and a white cloak, but his gender could not be determined from his body shape. But it exudes an elegant artistic temperament and a slightly burnt smell of fireworks. He also seemed like a top student from the Vinaya Academy of Arts in the Holy Silver Empire. It's him. This appearance and aura instantly reminded Byron of a person who, like himself, had recently become famous in Anchor Bay, a gunpowder artist. It is said that he was so skilled in handling various types of gunpowder that killing people was like an artistic performance. They would even send an invitation to the victim, inviting him to enjoy the fireworks show together. Usually after the performance, the scene is clean and nothing is left except ashes. It is much more high profile and arrogant than the elusive Wild Hunt. When Byron subconsciously activated the ship's log hidden in his right eye, he found that he could not read any information from him. He immediately realized that either the opponent's job level was higher than his, or he was wearing a strange item that could block or even modify his own information. More likely, both strength and props are possible. Others may not be able to smell the blood on him, but after performing the ritual of the Holy Grail of Blood, I am now more and more sensitive to the smell of blood. I'm pretty sure he just killed a lot of people again. Fortunately, the other party only glanced at Byron and also failed to see through his disguise of cognitive correction. The two of them passed each other hurriedly. Byron hurried back to the Rosemary Inn to save his guardian knight. The gunpowder artist ignored the fancy clothes on the roadside and walked all the way to the seaside at the end of Prostitute Street. Sheriff Weber, who once provided intelligence to Gus and Byron, was smoking a worn-out walnut pipe, as if he had been waiting here for a long time. When he saw the person coming, he was startled for a moment, but when he saw the whalebone emblem on his sleeve, he suddenly realized Princess Palace. But he was stopped in time by the other party's eyes. Changing his carefree attitude in front of Gus, he quickly handed over a stack of papers and said respectfully, "I have prepared all the information you want." The Parliament and any higher-ups were definitely not alerted. I noticed that yesterday a large number of privateers from Hadding suddenly gathered near the nemesis of Councillor Edward Redbeard. Obviously they are ready to support him to take the position. When the gunpowder artist began to look through the information, the sheriff couldn't help but said cautiously, "Gonk, sir, are they the next target?" Would it be too radical for us to physically eliminate those competitors for the position of overseer in private, although the current overseer Children's Guard Sir Dennis is ill? The situation is not looking good, and there is a possibility that the position of Commander-in-Chief will fall from the hands of us, the people of Taiwan. But this is completely contrary to the legislative spirit of the Pirate Code. Apparently, even the Golden Palm Trading Company had sensed that something was amiss at Anchor Bay and had fled. Byron, an outsider, also pieced together the conspiracy of the privateering captains based on scattered clues. How could the senior management of Anchor Bay, who have been rooted here for thousands of years, not smell something wrong? It's clear that he is preparing to take action directly. No, judging by how active the gunpowder artists were recently, they should have already started. However, when he heard the sheriff say that the current overseer Children's Guard was ill, a trace of imperceptible sadness flashed in the gunpowder artist's eyes. Obviously there is something inside that outsiders don't know. Instead, he completely scoffed at what he called the legislative spirit. The value of the iron law of kingship is to safeguard the interests of the king and the ruling class, not the other way around. If the law cannot serve the king, then there is no need for it to exist. Those idiots in Hattings were forced to come up with the Magna Carta by a group of great nobles 200 years ago. He became the king under the law, causing a crown that had been passed down for hundreds of years to be covered in dust. The royal power was greatly restricted in the country, and the forces of other dissidents emerged one after another. Isn't it because the great nobles who had the right of inheritance were too powerful that York was able to replace Lancaster? If I were the Mad King of Lancaster, I would have purged all the domestic contenders for the throne long ago. Anyway, I am not a judge, so I don't need solid evidence. It is enough to suspect that someone is plotting something bad. Besides, I am a free pirate gunpowder artist now. What does that have to do with the official Anchor Bay? Isn't it enough to just kill and not bury? After saying these murderous words, his tone softened slightly. With the disappearance of my father, the pirate king of the North Sea, we, the people of the Bay who still retain our primitive beliefs, have lost our greatest support and confidence. As a princess of the Taiwan people, I can't afford to gamble and I can't bear the risk of misjudgment. The position of overseer is not worth clinging to. But the secret treasure guarded by the Wan people for generations is related to whether the Wan people can rise again, the whereabouts of his father, and even the life and death of everyone on the island. It must not fall into the hands of others. Since the age of discovery began, the people of Taiwan have been gradually declining. But the old people are still chanting an ancient legend, or more precisely, a very ancient prophecy. In the Imperial Age, the Bay people were still chasing wild deer in the forests of the Evernight Peninsula. Hundreds of years later, they will be chasing the entire Silver Continent. They conquered the continent by force, but were conquered by pagan beliefs. The glory of the Baidiwan people sank into the deepest part of the ocean. But one day it will be reawakened by blood and fire, my right eye will witness everything. The first 2/3 have been achieved. Many people believe that the last third will be no exception. Because it is a prophecy from the god of prophecy, kingship, and wild hunt. With this prophecy, it is not surprising that the gunpowder artist has issues with Hattings, a Bay nation that has fallen at the feet of the church. Her father, the whaler, disappeared because of this prophecy and the future of the tribe. The people of Anchor Bay could no longer afford to take any risks. Even without Byron's ability to see into the dark. They also knew very well that for the impregnable Anchor Bay, the new governor whose interests might not be consistent with theirs was the biggest flaw. It is better to bypass all official departments that may be infiltrated and strike first. Who says the weaker party can only passively wait for the judgment of fate? Whoever dares to judge me, I will send him to see their creator first. We are the people of the Bay, we are pirates, we are the people of Woden, the god of prophecy, kingship, and the wild hunt. Killing enemies and plundering like the wind is our true nature. Any pirate who dares to lay his hands on the position of warlord will be killed. And I will always remember the last words my father said to me before he left. The gunpowder artist looked up at the layers of black sails in the anchorage of Iron Anchor Bay and said word by word. As long as he has the courage to bear the consequences, how can the king be bound by mere rules? Make the hard decision, kill the child in you, and become a real adult. If Byron were here, he might have criticized her comments about his uncle. But he had to admit that this heir to the throne, whose situation was not much better than his, might not have the power of a king, but his aura was enough to attract people's attention. Chapter 52. Privateering Alliances and Raids. At 9 o'clock the next morning, the sun had not yet risen and the sky was pitch dark. A corner of the Anchor Bay anchorage. At least 100 pirate ships of all sizes quietly gathered together to form an independent and exclusive small group. Although the Blood Cross flag of the Kingdom of Hastings was not openly displayed on the mast, the sailboat style, decorations, and even the appearance of the pirates were mostly those of Hastings. There is no doubt that they are all privateers belonging to the White Rose York family. The Pirate Code of Iron Anchor Bay recognizes their piracy and accepts privateer captains from various countries. It also allows them to move freely in this pirate port. At the center of the group of privateers was a ship called the Nemesis, which was comparable in size to a 74-gun third-class ship of the Kingdom Navy. Compared with other short pirate ships, it stands out. This is the flagship of the pirate fleet under the command of Senator Edward Redbeard. There is a special combat command room in the tall stern building, and a large number of privateering captains have gathered here at this time. Extraordinary people are no longer rare. Only those with the second-level professional grade are qualified to get a chair, and first-level servants can only stand and listen. He had previously competed with Byron for Brooks Woodpecker Melts. Although he is only at the first level, he has managed to get a position with the help of his unique black magic and Queen's blessing. Among the privateers, an extraordinary person wearing a black suit and a black hat, as if he had just returned from someone else's funeral. He was holding a dirty headscarf in his hand, and he drank a glass of strong absinthe with hallucinogenic effects, muttering to himself, "People come from the sea and return to the sea, the drums will stop, the bagpipes will be silent. Arnold, Arnold! Come back, come back!" After he repeatedly called out a person's name, his body suddenly convulsed violently as if he were having a seizure. The entire conference room became extremely cold and gloomy. Many transcendents with higher levels of inspiration could even hear something whispering in the shadows at the corners of the table. The privateer captains around couldn't help but become nervous. Because the medium from the cemetery sequence in front of him is using his signature skill clairvoyance, after taking some highly hallucinogenic herbs or medicinal liquors, their minds will enter a trance state between life and death. Let your consciousness separate from the material body and communicate with certain dead spirits in the void to obtain information about the deceased. Of course, this kind of spiritual ritual is also very dangerous, and it must have a sufficiently stable anchor to anchor itself. Otherwise, there is a risk of consciousness being quietly lost or even being eaten by certain beings in the world of the dead. So before the medium began communicating with the spirits, he borrowed money from every captain present, as no one hoped that he would fail. However, as time goes by, as the biting cold wind continued to blow the headscarf, no spiritual body could be seen. A pirate captain wearing a cocked hat and with bloodshot eyes asked anxiously, "How's it going?" After a long while, the medium opened his eyes tiredly, shook his head, and said in a dead voice, "As expected, Arnold's spirit has dissipated like the previous victims. I can't identify the murderer. But the style is still obviously that wild hunt." Bang! The pirate captain's original 1 in 10,000 hope turned into boundless anger. He raised his hand and slapped the thick oak table hard, looking at the participants and said angrily, not counting the ordinary members, "This is already the 6th extraordinary person, are we going to continue to passively take the beating like this? Who will die in the Privateer Alliance tomorrow, you or me? If this continues, people will lose their confidence." He paced a few steps anxiously. "During this period, our people have been missing every day. What's even more abominable is that it wasn't until last night that we discovered that the arrogant Wild Hunt actually only killed the captains and pirate officers of our privateering alliance. Damn it, do you really think we are all made of clay?" The other pirate captains also had gloomy expressions, but they also expressed deep sympathy for the speaker. Because the person who just disappeared last night was his first mate, an alcoholic named One-Eyed Arnold. They were also the ones the psychic had just communicated with. Everyone said they were missing, but in fact everyone knew that those missing people were actually dead. There are all kinds of professions among this group of privateer captains. The prophet of the tower sequence, the hunter of the wilderness sequence, and the medium of the cemetery sequence. But we don't know what methods the murderer used. Not only the corpses, but even the spirits of the extraordinary people that could exist for a long time were eliminated, and the prophecy was the first to be excluded. The longer time goes by, the more the Wild Hunt hiding in the dark becomes a mystery. The fear of the unknown spread among all the pirates in the privateering alliance, causing Byron's already high legendary degree to rise even higher. I'm afraid it won't be long before it exceeds 20 and brings some tangible extraordinary effects. At this time, one of the captains knocked on the table, attracting the attention of others. "We were called together by Councillor Redbeard, and we put aside our past differences and formed an alliance. As a whole, we did not offend anyone at all. Do you think it has something to do with that son of the devil? Ever since the magic mirror west of the white crystal caught his tail, the devil's son disappeared without a trace. From then on, no matter whether West's divination ability was stronger or weaker, no one could pinpoint his location. How similar is this to the Wild Hunt? Others raised objections. But the devil's son was just an underage mortal half a month ago. Could it be that he had joined forces with a certain force in Anchor Bay and obtained asylum? Perhaps, if we just catch the Wild Hunt, we can follow the clues to find the devil's son. Regardless of whether this speculation is based on facts or not, all privateer captains reached a consensus: we must counterattack. Judging from the fact that the highest rank of the victims was only first rank, this wild hunter should also be only first rank. During this period, the staff will be reduced and first-level extraordinary people will reduce going out. Then send out a few second-level elite baits to lure and kill the wild hunt. When everyone's morale was rising again, Woodpecker Mouth suddenly poured a bucket of cold water on them. Everyone is on the list, so why do you think he wouldn't collect intelligence in advance when selecting a target? Plus, he only targeted our first-level attendants. Do you have a way to completely disguise yourself as someone else? It was a bit awkward for a moment. Most of the brutal pirates are well known and have obvious characteristics. They are pirates, not a group of killers. It is really difficult for them to deal with such a tough enemy. The pirate captain whose first mate had just died was the most unwilling to accept this. He rolled his eyes and suddenly said, "By the way, why hasn't Captain Redbeard come back yet?" He gathered everyone together with White Rose's order, saying that he would lead everyone to achieve great things. Now that we're in trouble, he won't stay out of it, right? With his help, a small wild hunt and the demon's son who is hiding somewhere unknown can be captured easily. And his eyes swept across the entire audience. Everyone, is there a possibility that the wild hunt is not the enemy we provoked, but the enemy of Counselor Redbeard? It was like a wake-up call, and the eyes of all the privateering captains began to flicker. At this moment, there is a report from the sailors of the Nemesis. Captain Redbeard, who had just attended an emergency meeting of the Captain's Council, has returned to the dock and is about to board the ship. No matter what they thought in their hearts, the group of privateer captains all stood up and walked out of the stern deck to greet the middle sequence extraordinary person. But they had just lined up on the deck when they saw a group of people carrying whale oil lamps walking towards them along the pier in the distance. Boom! A deafening roar suddenly exploded in the night sky. What greeted their backer Redbeard and his entourage earlier than them was actually a blazing flame rising into the sky. Chapter 53. Kiss of Flame, Soul Hidden Life Box. The loud noise at the dock instantly attracted the attention of everyone near the port. Call out, in the Rosemary Inn, Byron, who heard the noise, also jumped onto the roof in one mountain goat step. Looking far towards the pier. When he returned to the inn last night, he immediately gave Brooke the blue blood spring made with the extraordinary level transmutation blood. He stayed by his side the whole time, watching the Guardian Knight's serious injuries and even the destroyed appearance on his face recover quickly. However, before Byron could wait for Brooke to wake up, he was greeted by this earth-shattering explosion. Is that the anchorage where the Privateer Alliance is anchored? Has any privateer captain been hit by a bomb? That's really well done. It turned out that it was the enemy's house on fire. Byron suddenly felt that the raging flames that were bearing fangs and claws like a demon seemed a little cute, and he applauded it on the spot. He also took out the warrior's cup and drank a cup of blood brew rattlesnake for himself. The field of vision suddenly changed, and many orange and yellow patches that were previously imperceptible appeared in the darkness. But it also opened its own thermal vision. After he officially performed the ritual of the Holy Grail of Blood, he finally reached the complete state of his current class. The means have been greatly enhanced, and the ability to imitate different identities has also increased. Although I don't have the core ability of food supplement of the second-level gourmet, I can't make up for the deficiencies in a certain area by eating certain food. However, a similar effect can be achieved by drinking a variety of blood brews. For example, you can mix bison blood and tequila into a drink called Matador, you can mix dog blood and gin into a drink called Hound of Smell, use snake blood and whiskey to make a cup of rattlesnake, use grasshopper juice and vodka to make a cup of flying grasshopper to get amazing jumping power. It has the same effect as food supplement. With the help of thermal vision, the scene of the explosion became clearer. Although he was unable to discover where the attacker was hiding, Byron instinctively thought of the first person he met last night. This violent and direct style is difficult for others to imitate. Crackling at this time, even the broken wooden boards, human bodies, sand, and gravel that were torn into pieces by the hot air currents were falling from the sky like rain. The attackers' offensive also continued. In the sea water near the damaged pier, dozens of fiery red fish fins cut through white water lines and rushed towards the center of the explosion from all directions. When it touches anything except water, it will present a dazzling and violent explosion to the world. Boom! 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 For a moment, it was brighter than the flames from a battleship's artillery barrage. In fact, this is a special kind of gunpowder formula kiss of flame. As an alchemical product in the hands of a craftsman, its power is mediocre. However, if eaten by various animals, it will produce a unique reaction with their flesh and blood, turning into a terrifyingly powerful incendiary or explosive substance. As long as these animals are guided by some simple supernatural powers, they will become remote-controlled bombs that can be controlled remotely. It is also one of the most violent and direct methods of killing. Behind the school of fish, a large group of red rats also rushed over like a tide to the other side of the pier connecting to the land. They rushed forward fearlessly, adding a more brilliant and spectacular touch to this grand fireworks show. The bright fire lit up half of the dark sky, making it as bright as day. Art! It is indeed art, Byron applauded repeatedly and couldn't help but exclaim. This is the splendor of the extraordinary world, full of surprises and the unexpected. The firepower of a single gunpowder artist, if he is well prepared, is almost as powerful as a naval gun salvo. Not to mention the mid-sequence transcendence, even the high-sequence transcendence would not dare to withstand the salvos of battleships. The times have changed. It is no wonder that the maritime powers are so confident that their giant ships and cannons will dominate the sea full of unknowns and bizarreness. I really want it. It would be great if such a transcendent could become a crew member of my Golden Deer. Of course, it's impossible to even think about it. Even if the Guardian Nightbrook recovered, their entire ship could not defeat one of him. The little regret did not dampen Byron's good mood. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Although this statement is not absolute, the probability of them becoming friends is much greater than that of strangers. Unfortunately, before he could continue to gloat, new changes occurred at the center of the explosion. Bang! A strong and extremely cold air current suddenly erupted from the center of the flames, which had already burned to a blazing white, and repelled the raging firestorm that was boiling the seawater far away. A charred corpse that looked incomplete, with only bones left, stepped out and was exposed to all the onlookers. Hiss! Half of the port was filled with gasps. Even Byron couldn't help but look horrified. He was bombarded and burned like this, yet he's still alive. What happened next overturned everyone's cognition. Under the gaze of countless eyes, the charred corpse regenerated rapidly as if time had gone backwards. The burnt bones recover as if they were new, and the muscles, fascia, internal organs, and blood grow again on them. It only took a dozen or so breaths. The charred corpse had turned into a living person, and even the clothes on his body had returned to their original state. But in Byron's thermal vision, he didn't have even an ounce of human heat, and his temperature was even lower than the surrounding environment. This was a middle-aged pirate, nearly 200 centimeters tall, in his early 40s, with a big red beard. Coincidentally, almost everyone knew him, including Byron, a newcomer who had only been in Anchor Bay for a short time. Edward Redbeard, a senior member of the Captain's Council and currently the most popular candidate to be elected pirate warlord. A wanted criminal in many countries, with a reward of £5, a famous serial killer, he once created a brutal record of robbing a coastal town and slaughtering thousands of people, leaving no one alive. Blood eyes compared to him, Salmon is not even worthy of carrying his shoes. At this moment, an unexpected ambush exposed to everyone his other terrifying ability besides his notoriety. Immortality. The tens of thousands of pirates who witnessed this were all terrified. The invincible image has been deeply engraved in the hearts of every pirate present. Who would want to be an enemy of a monster that cannot be killed even by such terrifying firepower? Who can be an enemy of him? Perhaps realizing the weakness of this attack, the attacker gunpowder artist immediately stopped and remained silent. What kind of power is this? Even the legendary cursed spirits that are invincible are only this powerful, right? Forbidden knowledge, this must be some kind of extremely powerful forbidden knowledge. But the daring pirates around were like boiling water, excitedly discussing the abilities of Edward Redbeard. And among the countless awe and admiration, there were also a few bold and greedy gazes. This made Redbeard, who had shown his frankness and revealed his cards, extremely annoyed. But he didn't even know who the attacker was or where he was hiding. I had no place to vent my anger, so I could only grit my teeth in silence. Damn attacker, no one in this world can kill me. No matter who you are, if I catch you, I will sacrifice you alive to my life box. You will neither be able to live nor die. It is obvious that Edward Redbeard does possess a powerful forbidden knowledge. Black magic soul hiding life box. He arranged a ritual, sacrificed 10 lives, dug out his own heart and placed it in an ebony box. Then hide the box in a place where no one can find it. To a certain extent, it can make people possess extremely terrifying immortality, with no vital parts on the body and complete immunity to physical damage. As long as the heart in the box is not destroyed, the person will not truly die, even if he is cut into pieces and his bones are crushed to ashes. Apart from the fact that the body becomes as cold as a corpse, there are no serious side effects. But there is a time limit, and the sacrificial ceremony must be held every year. By the 10th year, 1,024 people would be needed to massacre a small town. Anyone who dares to practice this kind of evil black magic will become a real murderer in a few years, completely independent of his own will. Therefore, in order to collect sacrifices, Edward Redbeard never left anyone alive when he plundered on the sea. When he boarded his ship Nemesis again, facing a group of privateer captains with different expressions, he gave the order with a gloomy face, "Don't worry, everything is under my control. Go gather your crew, it's time to make achievements." Chapter 54. The beginning of subversion. It was not until dawn that the privateer captains, who had received their missions, left the Nemesis with heavy hearts. In the huge war conference room, only Edward Redbeard was left. With his hands clasped together and placed on the table, he looked out the window at the gradually bustling port city, without any of the passion that a congressman should have in his eyes. There is only endless indifference and ambition. No matter how hard you struggle, it's useless. Anchor Bay will soon become a thing of the past. Plan number 1, seize the position of warlord, cooperate internally and externally to capture Anchor Bay, eliminate the free pirates in the North Sea, and seize the great secret treasure guarded by the people of the bay. Plan number 2, if plan number 1 encounters obstacles, all the stubborn Byron people who stick to tradition will be wiped out. Even in the eyes of Edward Redbeard, a veteran pirate with a long history of evil, the people of Iron Anchor Bay, who have always adhered to traditions, have violated too many taboos. As the most stubborn pirate group on the East Coast, they violated the interests of all the maritime powers in the age of exploration. When all the big pirates, including the Barbary pirates, gradually left the Old World, they still stayed in Anchor Bay, slapping the faces of the navies of various countries. He refused to accept the Church's faith reform and stubbornly worshipped Woden, the god of prophecy, kingship and the wild hunt, who had long since lost all his miracles. Lastly, and most importantly, is the prophecy said to have been made by Woden himself. The glory of the Byron people will be reawakened by blood and flames, and rule this continent. If I were those high and mighty bishops and kings, I would not tolerate the existence of such a group. If you refuse to leave, even if I chase you away, I can only ruthlessly pull out this nail. Up to this point, Redbeard was the only person who knew of the initial plans of the Hastings Admiralty. Every winter, huge storms inexplicably blow across the entire North Sea. It lasts from November to January of the following year, with the peak in December. During this period, most sailing ships on the North Sea follow tradition and try not to go out. Because of strong winds and high waves, the lower gun ports would be caught in the waves and could not be used. In the event of extremely severe weather, it was not uncommon for entire fleets to be destroyed. It is now November 1471, 11 in the Silver Era. Unless they braved the rough seas and crossed the North Sea, the pirates meeting in Anchor Bay would be trapped here for the next 2 to 3 months. At that time, the entire Anchor Bay will become a huge secret room and cage. This is also when the plan actually begins to be implemented. As a trump card, York will bring a natural disaster to Anchor Bay that has already been proven in the War of Red and White Roses and is absolutely irresistible to mortals, and will reap everything. How does Anchor Bay compare to Lancaster? This battle cannot be lost. But before that, in addition to gaining control of the law, he and the privateer captains needed to start a preparation in advance. Collect the flesh, blood and soul of the Byron people. Although I don't know why the group-specific element is needed. But it is easy to guess that the Orthodox Supernatural series will definitely not use these things, they are just used to display some kind of forbidden knowledge. It's been less than 20 years since the dark millennium of high-pressure church rule, and now even the royal family has begun to degenerate. The attitude of the church, at least the Bishop of Hastings, is also somewhat intriguing. Thinking of this, Redbeard's face became gloomy again. I had just gathered the privateer captains and was about to take action when I encountered a fatal attack. Could it be that my previous plan to summon the Ripper and the Faceless Man to collect the information of the Bay people and to test the life and death of the overseer Dennis the Child Guard was exposed? It shouldn't be like that. Well, a group of assassins who have suddenly become famous in Anchor Bay recently: Gunpowder Artist, the Ripper, Faceless Man, Wild Hunt. Most of them actually have their origins. The Wild Hunt is Byron's vest, Gunpowder Artist is the indigenous force of the Bay people, and who knows how many of the rest are sword-stabbed by ambitious people. These guys, who are pirates by profession, don't play by the normal rules at all, and none of them are easy to deal with. Even elections, which are a symbol of civilization, are inevitably tainted with blood. Of course, this is also closely related to the disappearance of the Pirate King, the unclear physical condition of the governor, and the serious decline of the pirate code. The Taiwanese people eventually declined. Redbeard rang the bell and called in the first mate, who was standing outside the door. Whether or not we have been exposed, we must speed up. Those privateer captains have already set out with sacrifices to prepare for the summoning ceremony. The arrow is on the string, and we must also start it in full swing here. Now I assign you 2 tasks. First, in addition to the privateering alliance, I will continue to recruit free pirates to help me. The bigger the better. Second, didn't that bunch of idiots want me to help lure and kill the assassin hiding in the dark? Let the Ripper and the Faceless Man take action, find the Wild Hunt, and kill him. I suspect today's attacker may be that Gunpowder Artist. The 2 of them appeared in Anchor Bay at about the same time, and they both targeted us, so they might be in the same group. The first mate bowed in response. Yes, Captain, the Ripper and the Faceless Man should indeed prove with their actions that it is not a waste of resources for us to give them 2 rare item octopus silver coins that can be used for anti-divination. Wild Hunt is just a first-level attendant. Even if he is the best among the first-level ones, if he wants to kill the fallen second-level one, it would take 3 people to siege him together. I am sure they will not disappoint you. The first mate responded confidently. Behind him, Edward the Redbeard nodded slowly, with a hint of piety in his eyes. I have committed murder and arson, and I have done all kinds of evil things, but I have always been a devout believer. God has endowed human rights and souls are equal, but only the Church is qualified to define who is a human being in this world. The Creator will bear my sins and forgive my transgressions. Please bless me to open up new horizons for you and create great achievements. What? Before that stormy night, the House of York issued an order to massacre the nobles of the Lancastrian captives. Byron had just returned to Brooke's room after watching the excitement, and found that he had regained consciousness as his injuries had rapidly improved. The appearance that he had destroyed himself was completely restored, and he became a tough guy as solid and reliable as marble. Although he was tongue-tied, his eyes were filled with joy at the unexpected reunion after almost being separated forever. Some time ago, although this guardian knight was seriously injured, he still retained a clear consciousness and knew what was happening outside. After waking up, the 2 brothers were no longer fussy people and simply skipped the process of expressing their heartfelt feelings to each other. With the qualities of a guardian knight and a professional soldier, he immediately shared the intelligence he had with his Lord Byron. Yes, when I was captured and tortured by those traitors, I overheard a piece of news from them. On October 10, the day before the stormy night, Edward IV of the House of York issued a warrant for the massacre of the nobles. Killed all the people we captured. Now it seems more like a blood sacrifice of unknown meaning. After listening to Brooke's narration, a mystery that had been lingering in my heart for a long time was finally solved. Is that why, that night, under the influence of the unknown existence, the Lancaster was the only one in the entire fleet who lined up to jump into the sea? No one else was affected. On October 10, the head of the York family, the current King Edward IV, suddenly issued an order that was completely inconsistent with the rules of war. Spare the common soldiers, and kill all Lancastrians captured in the war. And when the soldiers buried the bodies, they found that they seemed to have been dried by the wind and there was no trace of moisture left. Byron, who had already performed black magic rituals himself, the first thing that came to his mind was sacrifice. Using the blood and souls of some members of the same family to target an entire family, no matter if they were on a naval battlefield or not, they probably would not be able to escape. Then the problem is coming. What level of existence can use this kind of blood sacrifice positioning to easily break through the royal family's extremely high-level silver law protection? Byron's heart began to beat faster at the thought of that horrible thing, perhaps swimming on the bottom of the North Sea. Simultaneously, the decryption density of secret, the conspiracy of the Admiralty, historical influence 20, decryption density 35%, jumped from 35% to 56% in an instant. The unlocking density of secret, shadow of the Red and White Rose War, historical influence 31, unlocking density 20%, has also been increased to 30%. The connection between the two events is obvious. Could it be that York wants to repeat what happened in the Strait of Dover in Anchor Bay? Byron immediately thought of the huge lighthouse he saw near him on the day he was promoted to Storm Knight, which was dragged down to the Sea of Source by an unknown object. Is there a possibility that that thing's sights had already fallen here? His instinct told him to run, but his mind told him that he couldn't escape. Finally, his eyes flashed with ferocity. I must know their plans at all times. Without further ado, I will find an unlucky fellow from the Privateer Alliance to replace him tonight. Chapter 55, Faceless Man, Spirit Behind Him. The attacker gunpowder artist, who belonged to a third-party force, was still sitting far away on the beach at the end of Prostitute Street, without moving at all. It was as if the wonderful fireworks show just now had nothing to do with her. The expression under the mask was similar to Byron's. I was almost fooled by this old fox. Those pirates I assassinated before were obviously small fry who were deliberately pushed out to fool people. This one is the real big fish. Redbeard is stronger than I thought. Even though he has served 2 terms as a congressman, he actually has a hidden card that no one knows about. These veteran pirates are indeed old sea dogs who have experienced countless trials and tribulations. It may be even more difficult for them to target him next time. Among the pirate community, one can roughly estimate a person's strength and dangerousness just by looking at the wanted poster. Low sequence, first level attendant, third level wanted criminal, 3,000 pounds, second level occupation, second level wanted criminal, 3,001 pounds. Middle sequence, tier 1 elite, level 5 wanted criminal, 5 pounds, tier hero, special wanted criminal, more than pounds. Above that, there are almost no high sequence pirates who will be wanted. When you reach that level, you are already qualified to sit at the table and get a piece of the pie from the rulers of various countries in a fair and open manner. So, when the overlord wants to deal with you because you have a powerful weapon, you'd better really have it. Iron Anchor Bay knows it best. There are no 4th level extraordinary pirates in the North Sea anymore. All the parliamentarians are 3rd level pirates. Redbeard, it's hard to say what Edward's true strength is. But the bounty amount equivalent to the 4th level, even if it is only the 4th level's floor price, is enough to indirectly illustrate how brutal this scourge is. The situation in Anchor Bay is not good. It would definitely not be a blessing for the people of Taiwan if this murderer became the commander-in-chief. The gunpowder artist turned away, ready to recheck the control authority of the hundreds of fortress guns and gunners in the harbor. As a 3rd-level craftsman, she firmly believes that in this world, range is truth and firepower is power. If they can't solve the problem, it must be because the gunpowder equivalent is not enough. Unfortunately, she obviously underestimated the enemy's determination and ruthlessness, and did not understand what she and Anchor Bay were about to face. The short day passed in a flash. In a corner of the port city, in an area where Taiwanese people live, a faint light is shining through the window of a house. 2 children, one big and one small, were lying by the window, looking outside from time to time through the glass that was obviously not well made. "Sister, I'm hungry. Why hasn't Mom come back yet?" But the sister's expectations time and time again were only met with disappointment time and time again. In the night that had already become completely dark, that familiar and gentle figure still did not appear. At this time of day, their mother, who worked in the bakery, would have returned home and would always bring them some delicious white bread. Sometimes we also bring them sweet honey bread and delicious jam bread. Those little surprises are their best memories of their childhood. "Little Amy, hold on a little longer. Mommy must have been delayed by something and will be back soon. If you are really hungry, drink some leftover mushroom soup from lunch." The elder sister, who was no more than 10 years old, suppressed her worries and did not forget to comfort her younger sister. The 2 sisters waited for another half an hour, added firewood to the fireplace at home, and were about to fall asleep on the windowsill. Suddenly, I heard a knock on the door. "Mom is back." The 2 sisters jumped up happily and flew towards the door like 2 little butterflies. But when they opened the door together and were about to throw themselves into the arms of their long-awaited mother, they stopped at the same time. "Mom, what's wrong with you? It was indeed their mother outside the door. But it looked like she had fallen, her clothes were covered in mud, the hem of her skirt was torn, and there was a faint smell of blood on her body. The woman, with an unusually pale face, raised the basket in her arms and explained in a somewhat awkward tone, "I accidentally fell on the road and sprained my ankle. I didn't meet anyone I knew, and it was hard for me to walk back alone. Children, please help me in." The two sisters' original doubts about why their mother came back so late suddenly disappeared. He quickly stepped forward, holding the woman's hands, and carefully helped her into the house. They were so concerned that they didn't realize that their mother's hands were as cold as 2 cubes of ice. There was also a trace of footprints at the door, left by someone pacing back and forth like a headless fly. Before they opened their mouths to invite their mother in, the other person's feet couldn't even touch the threshold. The 2 little girls helped the woman sit on a chair, one of them found her some medicinal wine, and the other poured her a cup of hot water. "Mom, I'm so hungry, what are we going to eat tonight?" The younger sister, whose stomach had been rumbling for a long time, couldn't help but feel hungry and acted coquettishly towards her mother. When I looked up, I saw that what my mother slowly took out from the basket was not the sweet white bread I had imagined. Instead, it was a pile of blood-stained knives, forks, axes, and saws. Then I saw my mother, no, it was that thing I didn't know, with a pair of eyes that looked green and a creepy smile at the corner of its lips. "What are you still standing there for? Come here, Mom is going to prepare dinner." Hiss, the hair suddenly exploded. The two sisters have heard many bizarre stories about the sea in this pirate port since they were young. They are not simple girls who know nothing from remote areas. I immediately realized that something was wrong. Just as she was about to turn around and run out of the house, she was horrified to find that the shadow of her mother suddenly lengthened, connecting all their shadows together. For a moment, he couldn't even move his fingers, and an expression of fear froze on his face. Then, the mother grabbed a bloody axe on the table and moved towards them step by step. He looked left and right, as if seriously considering which one to eat first. The two sisters wanted to escape but couldn't, wanted to scream but couldn't, only clear tears slowly flowed from the corners of their eyes. They are sad not only because they are about to die, but also because their real mother may never come back. Seeing the mother holding the axe high in her hand, she was about to swing it down towards the younger sister. The movement suddenly froze. The two sisters' eyes widened as they saw a pale, faceless figure emerge from behind their mother, with its toes resting underneath her heels. A blood-red rune on the forehead flashed rapidly. "It's so noisy that even having dinner is uneasy. Hurry, 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 isn't it just to kill a wild hunt? How can I kill it if I can't meet it? It's none of my business whether the bait you sent out dies or not. Isn't there still the Ripper?" With delicious food in front of him, he was about to continue swinging the axe. It seemed that the person on the other side of the contract had used some kind of coercive means, and the pale figure flickered. Suddenly, it felt like a rope was pulling at the back of my head, and I was floating in the air, then disappeared into the air in an instant. The soul and life force in the mother's body were also pulled out by the faceless man when he struggled, and sank into a silver coin with an octopus pattern on it embedded in his chest. That is exactly the element of the Bay ethnic group. Only a roar echoed in the room. "Damn Redbeard, I'm going to eat you sooner or later." The mother also collapsed to the ground. After a long time, the suppressed and helpless cries of the two sisters gradually spread from the house. A once happy family was shattered in an instant. And this was just the beginning of the many tragedies in Anchor Bay. Chapter 56. Hunting and Counter-Hunting. Under the same night sky, Byron, who had no idea that he was considered to be in cahoots with the gunpowder artist by Redbeard, once again came to the prostitute street and began to select a suitable replacement target. Activate cognitive correction to turn yourself into a roadside tree. As Brooke fully recovered, the anchor representing his interpersonal relationships gradually became more stable, and the texture of his spiritual glow became thicker. During the day, in addition to the massacre order, Byron also learned from Brooke. After the war, all the women of the Lancaster family, including his aunt Queen Margaret, were handed over to the church and imprisoned in a monastery on an isolated island. Most of them were foreign nobles who married into Lancaster. They were not recognized by the iron law of kingship and Magna Carta, but their lives were guaranteed. If nothing unexpected happens, he will most likely die alone in the monastery. As for the surviving female family members of the core vassal families of the Lancastrian party, Brooke was not sure. Whether it's advancement or in-depth research into forbidden knowledge, a sufficiently stable anchor is a prerequisite. In addition to the family members who have all been confirmed dead, there are probably a few core vassals who are being hunted down and will not be able to escape. But I only have so many anchors that represent relationships, and I must not give them up. It is imperative to penetrate into the York party. This time the whirlpool in Anchor Bay is my best chance. Compared with these close relatives, Byron never worried that the non-core vassals, officers, and soldiers of the Lancastrian party, who were the largest in number, would be liquidated and massacred. It's not that Byron is utilitarian and cold. It's because even when his uncle, the Mad King Henry VI, had an intermittent attack, he could not do such a crazy thing. Anyone who has lived in the countryside will probably have a deep understanding of this. How much power can a local household with a large population have in the local area? What's more, there are lords who monopolize all aspects of local politics, economy, culture, justice, etc., and even use knights and private soldiers to control the local military. To them, the saying "a big tree has deep roots and tangled webs" is not just an empty phrase. Death in war is normal, but death in a massacre outside of war will 100% lead to further rebellion. After all, even the Emperor of the Celestial Empire with centralized power could not do anything about the powerful families in the country, so how could the king, who was restricted by the Magna Carta, do so? No matter who sits on the throne, he will need their assistance. Byron knew that during the war, Lancaster's vast land and wealth were used to bribe the nobles in order to gain their support. There is even a case where the eldest son in a family works in Lancaster and the second son works in York. If there is a thorough purge from top to bottom, the ruling order of the entire country will be shaken, and the king himself will also be doomed. Byron believed that he had the strength to fight back to Hastings. These people may become your potential strength and your potential anchor, as long as it can bring them greater benefits. His most important task now is to focus on improving his own strength. Wait until late at night. Several second-level professional extraordinary people from the Privateer Alliance were released one after another. Byron finally saw two staggering first-level attendants walking out of a Moulin Rouge theatre and a bar respectively, 2 minutes apart. One goes east and the other goes west. After weighing the pros and cons, Byron signaled toward the darkness and quietly followed the one walking eastward. There is no other reason, I just feel that after being exhausted by the dancer's enthusiasm, this one's physical strength must be worse. Know-it-all Franklin Joshua, the naturalist of the Tower Sequence. Sequence motto: use knowledge to drive out ignorance. Naturalists are undoubtedly the most knowledgeable group of people in the world, and they possess a high degree of universality in all kinds of extraordinary abilities. During the servant stage, you can ignore knowledge, judgment, inscriptions, enchanting, and use all witchcraft creations, artifacts, and relics of the same level without any threshold. At least they can bring out their basic abilities. If it is a general-purpose supernatural instrument, it can exert an effect far beyond that of other professions and greatly reduce side effects. In their brains, there is also a public library called Key of Omniscience, which is divided into 7 levels, just like the levels of the law. The higher the rank of naturalist, the higher the level of knowledge that can be accessed. It can even retrieve all existing human knowledge. Unfortunately, although this know-it-all knows everything, he just doesn't understand human nature. The Privateering Alliance accepted the mission issued by Edward Redbeard, but they were really worried that they would be assassinated afterwards. Almost all the first-level servant-level extraordinary people were restricted from going out, but he and another unlucky guy were allowed to wander around. As a naturalist, how could he not know why? Even a deaf person knows that there is a wild hunt that is madly hunting down pirates from the Privateering Alliance. This morning, even the middle sequence transcendent Captain Edward Redbeard was attacked in public, which shows how crazy the attackers were. The Privateer Alliance immediately launched the Operation Cage to capture the wild hunt. And these 2 first-level servants are just baits. The captains were worried that sending out only one person would arouse the suspicion of the wild hunt, so they simply sent out 2 and arranged for the Faceless Man and the Ripper to ambush separately. As long as any party lets the wild hunt take the bait, this mortal enemy will surely die. It was also Franklin's fault that he considered himself to be a rare scholar among pirates, was too arrogant, and always looked down on other crude pirates who could not even read. But he also likes to pry into other people's secrets, especially the side effects of various forbidden knowledge. This desire is almost strong to the point of being a price. In just a few days, he offended a lot of people. When Know-it-all asked someone today why Captain Redbeard couldn't die, he was decisively pushed out as bait. I am just an ordinary scholar. I am more interested in treasure hunting than killing and arson. I just want to follow Redbeard to see the great secret treasure in the legend of the Bay people. Don't come looking for me, go look for Hunter Blake. At this time, Franklin, who was not a combat profession, was like a frightened bird, suspicious of everything he saw while walking on the road. He didn't know where the enemy was, nor did he know where the yellow bird that the Alliance had arranged to protect him was. He tightly clenched the several whalebone amulets in his pocket that he had bought at a high price. Hey, in the darkness, where the only sound he could hear was his own pounding heartbeat, there was a sudden and very obvious sound of footsteps. Franklin carefully looked behind him with the silver mirror he carried with him, but found that there was no figure there at all. The legend of the wild hunt told by the people of the bay came to my mind involuntarily. Their privateering alliance came to Anchor Bay to do bad things. Even though he knew that the attacker was most likely a human and not some local elves or ghosts, he still couldn't help but get more and more scared the more he thought about it. Know it all, just like the 6 predecessors who fell under Byron's sword, gradually lost his rhythm and ran faster and faster. And the footsteps behind him were chasing closely. Guts, who couldn't wait to complete the ritual, the Phantom Killer's serial murders, followed quietly. Next came Byron, who activated cognitive correction. A tactic that has proven its superiority will only be improved before it actually fails, and will not be abandoned at will. Their hunting methods are no exception. The only difference is that it is a little different from the previous actions. Just when Byron made a gesture to Gus, indicating him to take action, he suddenly heard footsteps behind him. Chapter 57. 3 Wild Hunts? At this time, Gus saw that know-it-all Franklin didn't even have the courage to turn around and fight, so he simply slapped him on the shoulder. In my heart, I was shaking my head at this not-so-clean assassination method. Before today's action, I went to Uncle Weber and got several whalebone amulets with different functions. If it weren't for the mystery and surprise required by the promotion ceremony, I would have stabbed you in the kidney right now. Probably influenced by the Colosseum sequence, I now prefer the simple and violent fighting style of Gunpowder Artist. Explosion is the romance of assassins. When he slapped him, Franklin, who was already a frightened bird, was so scared that he jumped up on the spot. What? His spiritual energy burst out immediately, activating the amulet he was carrying. Amulet Moss Tombstone, can disguise as the undead and is not harmed by ghosts. Amulet Soul Dancer, makes the body lighter, greatly improving movement speed and flexibility. The negative effects of these 2 whalebone amulets are that they must not be used continuously for more than 5 minutes. Otherwise, the body will begin to die gradually and become a real undead, or even be imprisoned by the amulet and unable to be freed. A grayish-white mist exploded from the pirate scholar's body. He instantly became as nimble as a cat and turned around abruptly to pull out his gun. But just as Guts, who had already hidden behind him, was preparing to launch a sneak attack. But they were shocked to find that Byron, who was supposed to be the main attacker, failed to perform at the critical moment. Captain? Do it. It's a pity that Byron had no time to take care of him at this time. As footsteps sounded behind me, a bone-chilling chill came over me. When he stepped within 3 meters and entered the snooping range of the logbook, the attack and the information read hit his brain at the same time. A mountain goat footsteps suddenly rushed out 10 meters, but I still heard a voice close to my ear laughing strangely. "Gah, little bug, I got you." From Guts's perspective, he saw a strange figure with a pale body and blank facial features clinging to the back of his captain. The toes were placed under his heels, as if they had grown together. It was the faceless man who was forcibly summoned back by Redbeard to help. Dark magic, ghosts after death, is a taboo knowledge that is widely circulated among pirate groups and is even sold openly on the black market. A powerful warrior was tortured to death using extremely cruel means. By carving his leg bones into a talisman, one can imprison the opponent's soul and create a ghost behind you that follows you at all times. Even an ordinary person can fully obtain the powerful strength of this warrior after wearing the amulet. Side effects: not only will a person's quirks, habits, and personality become more and more like the ghost behind him. There is also a very strict taboo: you must never let the spirit behind you know your birthday. Once you break this taboo, it's no longer a matter of becoming more and more like him. Instead, on the next birthday, you will be eaten by the ghost behind you. He was replaced by the other party and became an evil spirit between a spirit body and a supernatural being. The consequences of many forbidden knowledge are similar when it gets out of control. The rules of the Silver Law and the disorder of forbidden knowledge will be restored to balance in them. This causes these fallen beings to kill people according to certain rules, absorbing the spiritual energy of the living to maintain their own existence. The spirit behind him, faceless man, is obviously like this. It was used by Redbeard to harvest the elements of the indigenous Bay people and served as the anchor of the ultimate killer. Byron saw that in the intelligence he had spied on, there was only a simple name Faceless Man Ghost behind, and no detailed information appeared. He immediately realized that the level of the spirit behind him was higher than his, and this was obviously a trap deliberately set by the Privateer Alliance. However, this kind of response from the enemy was within his expectations. This kind of reverse hunting will come sooner or later. The reason why they committed crimes in succession in a short period of time in the past few days was to create a time difference for the Privateering Alliance. Before the enemy can react, complete your plan to hold a ritual to brew transmutation blood. And today, you guys are still a little slow in reacting. Byron felt the chill that seemed to freeze his blood spreading from his heels upwards, and his control over his body was being taken away bit by bit. There was no doubt that if this chill took over his brain, the whole body will become a puppet controlled by the spirit behind it, just like the previous mother. This is the biggest difference between the second-level professional level and the first-level servant level. One already has active core extraordinary abilities, while the other only has 3 passive talents. The combat effectiveness is naturally very different. But after practicing the Blood Holy Grail, Byron is no longer the same as before. A clear spring is pouring out. As he read out the inscription of the warrior's cup on his waist, a line of fiery red wine with a strong smell of alcohol immediately shot out from the ox-horn cup and fell into his mouth. Breathe. As Byron's eyes suddenly turned red, he breathed in and out, and the scorching hot breath kept coming in and out with his breathing, and in an instant it turned into a blazing flame. Just by drinking a cup of blood brew, one can actually simulate the effects of elemental black magic. Blood brew volcano eruption. Also prepared is blood brew frost margarita. Ingredients: 1.5 ml of transmuted blood, 30 ml of tequila, 1.5 ml of white citrus liqueur, 30 ml of slime juice. It is also because the power brought by the silver law is too unreal. When conditions allowed, Byron couldn't help but try out this fancy thing with its own special effects first. It is precisely this kind of fancy tricks, which represent extremely powerful attack power, that produce miraculous effects when facing spirits. Byron turned his head and sprayed at the spirit behind him that was tightly attached to his back. Boom! A stream of flames mixed with red and orange shot out and sprayed directly onto the face of the spirit behind. I didn't expect that the Wild Hunt, which is famous for its assassination skills, actually has such a trick up its sleeve. It was caught off guard and took the blow hard. Amidst the shrill screams, the possession state of the spirit behind him was forcefully interrupted. It was like it was hit by a heavy hammer and flew backwards. Some of the powerful forbidden knowledge that has broken through the shackles of the sequence can completely replace the core abilities that only the second-level professional level possesses. And Blood Brew also allowed Byron to narrow the gap between himself and the second-level transcendence to a certain extent. Ah! I'm going to eat you alive! The spirit behind got up from the ground in anger and had just put out the flames on his body. Suddenly, the know-it-all Franklin, who was used as bait behind him, groaned, and fell to the ground dead after being stabbed in the back. However, it was not Guts who killed this first-level naturalist. But my lord is supreme. No one can offend me before I die. The spirit behind him widened his eyes and saw a shiny black boot falling in front of him. Then a figure as tall as an iron tower slowly walked out of the darkness, wearing a mask on his face, leather armor, and holding a half-sword in his hand that shone with cold light. He exudes an aura as unshakable as a reef. It turned out to be Byron's guardian knight Iron Wall Brook. Obviously, in order to prevent accidents during hunting, Byron prepared more than one backup plan in advance. Oath Knight: when fighting to protect the king, lord, and honor, in addition to gaining a combat power bonus, you can also share some of your lord's talents or unique extraordinary abilities. Chapter 43. Brooke had no difficulty joining the Wild Hunt. The spirit behind subconsciously took a step back. Wait! Why didn't anyone tell me there would be 3 Wild Hunts? Looking at the 3 people who slowly surrounded him, it suddenly realized that the original scenario of the Oriole is waiting behind had turned into catching a turtle in a jar without knowing it. The worst thing was that it was the turtle. Chapter 58, No Martial Ethics, Octopus Silver Coin. Although Storm Knight must strictly abide by the motto, I am the vanguard, Byron never did anything rash. They only killed first-level servants at the beginning, which gave people the inherent impression that his rank was only that of a servant, causing the enemy to look down on him. In the Alliance, there is only one mid-sequence transcendent, Edward Redbeard. Before each operation, Gus would sneak into the anchorage of the privateering alliance for a spin. After determining the location of this great pirate and eliminating the biggest source of danger, although they will not actively hunt down the remaining second-level pirates, they will not be afraid either, it's purely for risk control. I just feel that the second stage is not as economical as the first stage. I'll come back to kill you next time. Seeing that the situation was not good, the spirit behind took the initiative to activate the power of the contract, floated into the air again, and was about to disappear into the void. This guy still retains some humanity and wisdom, and knows how to seek benefits and avoid harm. Not to mention that the Wild Hunt, who was obviously supposed to be a first-level attendant, actually possessed a kind of forbidden knowledge that seemed to be extremely restraining to himself. Even if you can't win in a short period of time, you won't lose. The original situation was 1 against 1, but now it has become 1 against 3. If you don't run away, are you just waiting to die? Stay. Brooke, who had been on high alert and staring at it, was faster than it and threw out a bottle of No. 2 holy water he got from the black market. A white mist exploded in the field. The holy water had no effect on the 3 living people, but the spirit behind was like it had fallen into concentrated sulfuric acid. Stab it! The escape was also interrupted with a loud bang. Guardian Knight cannot have any weaknesses. Any negligence may cause a loophole in the Lord's defense, leading to unacceptable consequences. There are different ways to deal with different types of enemies. Generations of Guardian Knights in the kingdom have already worked together to write a complete training manual. Just use abnormal level of execution and do it. In a world dominated by supernatural powers, no one understands the supernatural better than the rulers. This is how the regular army fights, growing up together and being almost inseparable. Byron and Brooke rushed up together with the water mist. One of the physical swords, which were originally difficult to harm spirits, was burning with raging fire while the other was soaked in holy water. Die! Byron started with the rooftop sword style, and then he made a desperate move with a terrifyingly lethal force, known as the Old Man Chopping Stride Strike. It is said that a skilled swordsman, driven by rage, can cut through rock with one blow. With the help of volcanic eruption, Byron's sword moves seemed to have 1/3 of the legendary power. The spirit behind him, who was already suffering from the corrosion of the holy water and was in a debuff state, was unable to dodge and had half of his left arm cut off by a sword. On the other side, Brooke used ground skills, a roll and a rooftop spin, cutting off his right leg again. Just at the moment when the ghost behind lost its balance and fell to the ground wailing. Guts seized the opportunity and activated a whalebone amulet blood-sucking leech. Effect: you can give weapons special enchantments, one side absorbing other people's vitality, and the other side can heal yourself. Finally, he succeeded in stabbing the dagger into the back of the spirit behind's head and twisted it hard. Immediately, the presence of a second-level fallen was absorbed by him, and ritual, serial murders of the Phantom Killer was instantly completed. Guts also successfully became a first-level Phantom Blade. He became the 3rd extraordinary person on the Golden Deer pirate ship after Byron and Brooke. Combined with Byron's extremely practical forbidden knowledge, it can benefit all crew members. Even if this kind of strength is placed in the group of privateering alliances, it can be ranked in the upper middle class. No corpse was wasted. Byron pointed the blood holy grail seal in his palm at the spirit behind him on the ground and uttered a simplified bite fur. The body of the fallen one suddenly disappeared in a scarlet light. A cup of transmutation blood with an unprecedentedly strong aura was produced. Next, we have found the blood brew angel's kiss that will help the crew members awaken spiritually. With the privateer alliance as our blood bank, my crew will surely have another round of explosive strength before the Golden Deer leaves Anchor Bay. In fact, only by using the transmutation blood brewed by extraordinary people can one truly prepare extraordinary level blood brew. All the ones Salmon brewed before were defective. Others who want spiritual awakening usually need to continue taking spiritual awakening potion or use precious spices to assist meditation. Among the hundreds of blood brew recipes covering a wide range, there is one called Angel's Kiss that has a similar effect. Ingredients: 5 ml of second level or above extraordinary transmutation blood, 1/5 ml of dark cocoa liqueur, 30 ml of fresh milk, and 3 drops of cherry juice. As long as you are qualified and take it for a long time, you can greatly increase the probability of spiritual sublimation. Of course, the side effects of various blood brews cannot be ignored. Some blood brew can only be used by Byron himself, who has mastered forbidden knowledge. If given to others, it will become a complete poison. Some blood brews, such as the recovery type Blue Blood Sweet Spring, have minimal side effects and can be used by everyone. Compared to the spiritual awakening potion and spices that have no side effects, Angel's Kiss will make them yearn for motherly love on the day they drink it. Imitation of maternal love is fine, but at least it has to be the kind that requires singing lullabies and patting the butt before the child can fall asleep. Even though there were some shortcomings, the existence of blood brew did save Byron a lot of money. This is the benefit of using your strength to snowball. Kill enemies, blood brew, strengthen the strength of the group, and then hunt down more powerful enemies in turn to brew higher quality blood brew. Repeat the cycle and successfully get on the fast track of positive growth. Byron believed that it would not be long before the Wild Hunt team would consist of more than just the three of them. After all, in the legend, the Wild Hunt was supposed to be a group. Only the Lord of the Wild Hunt is unique. At this time, the money-loving Gus, who had completed the breakthrough, quickly picked up the only piece of loot from where the spirit disappeared behind him. A small silver coin. Cast on it is a strange emblem that looks like an octopus, a squid, and even has a few human features. The ferocious mouth in the center is open, and the two dark eyes that look like holes are captivating. If you look at the 8 twisted tentacles above, you will have the illusion that they are wriggling, which is extremely weird. This is obviously a strange object. Button tackle? Tentacle. Before the money grubber Gus could figure out whether the thing was worth money or not, Byron snatched it away at a faster speed. I fell in love with it at first sight, and my saliva was almost watering as I looked at it. Tentacle fetish activated. The level of the strange object itself was not high, and I only consumed a small amount of spiritual power and used echoes of history to successfully read its information. A rare silver coin forged from forbidden knowledge, part of a malevolent ritual. Effect: whenever a murder occurs within a 100-meter radius of the silver coin, the elements of the victim will be collected by it. The most representative group identity label is presented to the sight of a mysterious and unknown existence. In addition, because of the high degree of mystery of that existence, anyone carrying silver coins cannot be divined by divinations below the high sequence, nor can they be tracked by the law. Note: this silver coin is only one of a set of rare items used for rituals. Secret: the conspiracy of the Admiralty, historical influence 20. The decryption density was immediately increased from 56% to 70%. The unlocking density of Secret, Shadow of the Red and White Rose War, historical influence 31 has also been increased from 30% to 40%. Byron's eyes lit up. He and Gus had already heard from the sheriff that the Faceless Man and the Ripper were most likely the culprits of the recent disappearances of civilians, Chapter 48. But law enforcement teams have always found it difficult to locate them. Combined with the blood sacrifice intelligence provided by Brooke, the main mission of Redbeard and the Privateering Alliance has almost been confirmed. The evidence is overwhelming that they are really going to replicate the tragedy at Lancaster in Anchor Bay. Now the series of missing civilians is just a prelude to the blood sacrifice. And since the silver coins are a set, there must be other holders. Redbeard might have had some reservations before, but now that he has been targeted by the gunpowder artist, he will probably have to release them all to speed up the process. What about me? Lancaster had already been marked, so I was naturally in the game. Is it possible to do something with this thing? Byron thought so and was about to turn the know-it-all Franklin next to him into transmuted blood. But unexpectedly, he discovered that this guy had been affected by the side effects of the 2 whalebone amulets and had turned into an undead. If used for more than 5 minutes, the soul will be absorbed by the moss tombstone inside it, forming a special extraordinary item. In the center of the amulet is a tombstone carved with the name of Franklin Joshua, the know-it-all. There is also an epitaph engraved below: privacy, tell me your privacy quickly. Effect: the deceased's emotions are very stable in front of the grave, and his humanity is completely gone, leaving only his own knowledge and a strong desire to peek. You can ask it a question, but you must also answer it honestly. Note: if you answer, it may spread your secrets to people around you through spiritual broadcasting or dreams. If you cannot answer, you will be cursed with a first-level death curse. If you fail, you will die on the spot. If left alone, after a while, when he kills enough people, it will most likely become a new cursed item. A question-answering machine? It sounds a bit like a pen fairy. Byron did not use the Poincaré conjecture or the Riemann hypothesis to embarrass the newly minted pen fairy. He just tried to ask the most concerned question: I want to turn from evil to good and become Captain Redbeard's confidant. Do you think I still have a chance? Now that we already know that Franklin is a bait, the identity of Know-It-All can definitely no longer be used. But since his name is Know-It-All, He must know who in the privateering alliance would be more suitable, right? The undead was silent for only a second, then answered decisively in a sinister tone, of course. Chapter 59, Relic, 30 silver coins. In the North Sea, on the coast of Yanjai Peninsula not far from Anchor Bay. The night was already dark, and a thin mist rose above the sea with dim moonlight, making several pirate ships flying black skull flags vaguely visible. It looks just like the terrifying ghost ship in the legend. The emblem painted on one of the skull flags was a skull dragging a bloody twisted insect body, which was the insect song of woodpecker melts. Affected by the black magic and Queen's blessing, this is an alternative pirate gang where all members have turned into women. The Chongming had obviously adjusted its posture in advance, with its stern facing the Eternal Night Peninsula and its bow heading towards the Anchor Bay, as if ready to weigh anchor and set sail at any time. Suddenly, a shrill voice like a bug sounded. "It's midnight, all crew members are at their positions, and do not leave your posts no matter what noise you hear." All officers stayed to participate in the ceremony. "Bring me the slave." Woodpecker, due to his status as the Queen, Maltz's authority on this pirate ship is obviously higher than that of most pirate captains. They were infected with tapeworms by him, her, and became members of the Queen and S crew, becoming 100% obedient to him, her. Soon, they drew a 5-pointed star formation that looked like a goat's head on the tall stern building with blood. Several burly pirate officers, dressed in makeup, escorted an old slave who had been drugged and fell into a coma into the formation. Maltz arranged him in the shape of an inverted cross and lit a white candle at each of the 4 corners of the inverted cross. If Byron were here, he would recognize at a glance that this slave was one of the raw materials that the two of them had fought over at the Golden Palm Trading Company. Instead of being fed to the bugs, this extraordinary being was apparently being used as a sacrifice in another evil ritual. I don't know whether it is lucky or unfortunate. Woodpecker Maltz first poured a bucket of red wine that looked like blood from the stern into the sea. He then took out 2 silver coins from his pocket and placed them in the slave's eye sockets as if he were giving a pirate funeral. But that was no ordinary silver coin. Under the dim candlelight, it was clearly the same octopus silver coin as the one in Byron's hand. He reached out to take the ceremonial sword handed to him by the first mate, and without changing his expression, stabbed the sacrifice through the heart with the sword. The blood dripping from the tip of the sword dripped onto the 2 octopus silver coins in his eye sockets. The moment the 2 silver coins came into contact with the blood, the upward side suddenly turned blood red. An invisible wave spread far away from the stern. The thin mist around them instantly turned into white frost, causing many pirates of the insect song who were much stronger than ordinary people to shiver. The offering only twitched slightly before it became completely cold. "Captain, is it okay to perform the black mass ritual by desecrating holy objects?" The first mate next to him saw such a strange scene and couldn't help asking questions. Privateer captains also knew that these sets of octopus silver coins minted with forbidden knowledge were certainly not sacred objects. It was a replica of the level 0 holy relic, 30 silver coins. The famous 30 silver coins were the reward a traitor received for betraying the Son of God 1,500 years ago, and symbolize ill-gotten wealth. 30 silver coins were almost the price of a slave at that time. Because of the huge historical turning point and influence involved, the 30 silver coins regarded as holy objects by the church became terrible cursed objects. Countless unjust souls were imprisoned and punished by them, and eventually formed into various brutal cursed spirits. From then on, there was a taboo among the upper class of the old world when minting silver coins. It is absolutely not possible to mint exactly 30 silver coins of the same specifications at one time. Because just this insignificant connection is enough to make them gain a hint of resentment from this name and turn them into potentially dangerous items. As long as a black mass ceremony is held to desecrate holy objects in exchange for power, it will be very easy to attract wandering evil spirits and monsters. The required sacrifices have the following traits: slave, superhuman, faith in the Creator, remit bloodline is best, and so on. The so-called faceless man and ripper are just corrupted people who have retained a part of their self, and are used to experiment with the effects of silver coins and confuse people. Each person was only given 1 silver coin to block divination and receive the elements of the people in Bai Di Bay. The black mass ceremony held here by a group of privateers is the real highlight. After the Chongming, several other ships also began the ceremony. The temperature of the sea surface was constantly dropping, and in just a short moment it dropped by at least 10 degrees. If you listen carefully, you can even hear something whispering beneath the dark water, but if you look for the source, you will find nothing. Boom, boom, boom. Before Woodpecker could answer the first mate, a knock on the door was suddenly heard on the silent ship. No, it wasn't a knock on the door, something was banging on the bottom of the boat underwater. What the hell? For a moment, many old sea lions felt like they were back on overseas routes where there were more weird things than fish. His legs were shaking and his body felt a little weak. There were some young people who didn't believe in superstition, so they held whale oil lamps and stuck their heads out to look carefully underwater. But it was as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. His face was pale, his eyes were wide open, and his teeth were chattering yes, yes. Before she could even scream, she felt as if an invisible force grabbed her neck and dragged her away. At this time, the corpse of the sacrifice in the pentagram suddenly straightened its chest, opened its mouth and began to breathe again. A terrified scream came from a leaky throat. It's coming, it's coming. It. My body twitched violently as if it had been electrocuted, and I was about to stand up again. Quick, hold him down. Woodpecker did not panic, knowing that the evil spirit summoned by the ritual had already possessed the body of the sacrifice. The pirate officers who were well prepared rushed forward and pinned him down. Woodpecker was quick-witted and immediately stepped forward to turn over the 2 silver coins in the eye sockets of the corpse, so that the bright white side without blood was facing up. The summoned evil spirit seemed to be pressed down by a heavy burden and could no longer move. As if he had died again, he lay back down obediently. It has been temporarily sealed. The Black Mass ceremony of insect song was completed safely, with only 1 minion lost. Lights flickered on the mast, signaling to the fleet's makeshift flagship. The one in the middle was the flagship flying the pirate flag of Redbeard's nemesis. Bill, the temporary commander and executioner on the nemesis, put down the brass telescope in his hand and breathed a sigh of relief. Well, begun is half done. I hope there won't be any accidents in tonight's mission. As one of Redbeard's confidants, he led 3 privateering captains to receive the mission issued by the captain, and then left the anchor bay at full speed with the other 2 fleets. Arriving at a relatively densely populated land area with more evil spirits and monsters, they started the Black Mass ritual and invited the evil spirits to board the ship. There are a total of 14 ships performing the same mission, corresponding to the remaining 28 octopus silver coins. They are only responsible for execution and don't care about anything else. As long as we can ensure that these sacrifices that contain the evil spirits and monsters are brought back to Anchor Bay, it will be enough. What makes them most nervous is that some of the weird and evil spirits have some very strange accidental skills. If something has the possibility of going bad, no matter how small the possibility is, it will always happen. What is dangerous is not only the animals themselves, but also the various unexpected situations they bring. If you deal with these evil guys, no matter how careful you are, you may die a horrible death. Before carrying out the mission, every privateer captain received a high incentive from Redbeard, otherwise no one would dare to gamble on their luck. The Insect Song and another privateer ship Sunflower have already brought good news about the success of the ceremony. The last one, the Rainbow, was still silent. Just when Executioner Bill was about to send a signal to ask, "Ah!" the chaotic sound of gunfire and screams resounded throughout the entire privateer ship. I don't know what the crew had been through, but some of them actually fired indiscriminately, almost affecting the other 3 ships not far away. Bill couldn't help but curse inwardly, damn it, a bunch of idiots. The seal failed. But he also knew that he had no control over what kind of weirdness the counterfeit 30 silver coins would attract during the Black Mass. No matter how careful you are, you may encounter unpredictable accidents. Also keep in mind the taboos when taking risks. Strong curiosity is often the root of trouble. Immediately signal other privateers. The Rainbow is in bad condition, don't get close. The entire fleet will withdraw to Anchor Bay and advance at full speed. Run! The 3 ships, which had already adjusted their posture, abandoned their companions without any hesitation and weighed anchor collectively. As if there was a man-eating beast chasing him from behind, he rushed towards Anchor Bay. Chapter 60. Sea Trial, the best in the world. Call, the salty and biting sea breeze blew towards me. At noon, when the sun was shining brightly, a pirate ship with a black flag flew through the milky white fog wall and returned to the vast North Sea after being away for many days. The emblem on the flag features the classic skull and crossed swords. But it is not an ordinary human skull, but a dragon head skull commonly used by the people of Bidi Bay. Below it is a knight's sword and a pirate scimitar crossed with each other. Apart from the blood dripping from the corner of the skull dragon's mouth, there is nothing particularly novel about it. Compared with the flag, the unique shape and sails of the pirate ship are more eye-catching. This is none other than the reborn Golden Deer. Byron's undercover plan of turning from darkness to light did not come to fruition the next day. Because they knew from Sheriff Uncle Weber that it happened yesterday before they captured the ghost behind. Know-it-all, the most suitable confidant candidate mentioned by Franklin, actually left Anchor Bay in a hurry with many privateering ships and disappeared. The plan can only be postponed temporarily. But another good news makes up for this little regret. This pirate ship, renamed the Golden Hind by Byron, was finally repaired and renovated after 10 days of overtime work by the shipwright old Hans and his sons and a group of crew members. Byron put everything else aside and decisively ordered an immediate sea trial. An excellent pirate ship is always the most important support for pirates to roam the sea. Only with it can you attack or defend. Even if he was involved in the conspiracy of the Navy Department, he would not get himself involved in the end. Excellent captains and sailors must be fully aware of the performance of their own vehicles in order to truly form combat effectiveness, and sea trials are urgent. At this moment, Byron wore a cocked hat for the first time and personally held the shiny beach steering wheel of the Golden Hind as captain. He couldn't wait to activate his talent weather intuition to capture various weather information on the North Sea. The weather is nice today. It is a sunny day with light clouds, north wind level 20, wind speed knots. This wind will probably last for 2 hours. Command, rigger, full sail. As you command, Captain. Thomas, a former trainee navigator who had been promoted to rigging captain, immediately ordered a group of rigging sailors to operate various white rigging ropes and adjust the sails. Regardless of the type of sailboat, there are only 2 types of sails, a cross sail and a fore and aft sail. Advantages of square sail: fast speed when downwind, suitable for sailing on trade winds. It has a solid structure, many sails, and good resistance to damage, making it suitable for naval battles. Even if 1 or 2 sails are broken, it still maintains power. Disadvantages: complicated to operate, requires more crew members, poor ability to sail against the wind, and the 6 compass points are too inflexible for sailing close to the wind. Advantages of the fore and aft sail: easy to operate, requires fewer people, has strong ability to sail against the wind, is maneuverable and flexible, and is suitable for near-shore sailing or sailing in island and reef areas. Disadvantages: small thrust, cannot be used on large battleships, low cruising efficiency with a tailwind. Even if only one side is damaged, it will greatly affect the overall situation, putting it at a great disadvantage in naval battles. The modified hybrid sail of Golden Deer combines the advantages of the above 2 types of sails. The ship is light, with a square sail on the foremast and fore and aft sails on the mainmast and mizzenmast. The number of manpower is greatly reduced, and only 12 people are needed at a time to operate the sails of the entire ship. It was one of the best privateering ships in Byron's previous life. It was the dominant force on the seas of Blue Planet until the 19th century, and made great contributions in the wars of breaking up diplomatic relations among countries at that time. Without involving supernatural powers, it is undoubtedly the pinnacle of design. Of course, sailing warships of the heyday usually had 8 to 11 horizontal sails and 11 longitudinal sails, all of which were soft sails that changed shape with the wind. Aerodynamics is extremely complex, and even with previous technology it was not possible to fully simulate and analyze it. Byron couldn't explain the principle, but he knew that this kind of sail rig was extremely effective, so he just had to copy it. Who can say that applied science derived from experience is not science? The fully deployed sails began to catch the north wind. The power of the wind is transmitted to the entire pirate ship through sails, cables, masts, and keels. Through the steering wheel, it becomes a force controlled by Captain Byron. 2 compass points south by west, sailing with the wind on the right astern and the wind on the right starboard. The passive ability ride that had been shelved since he broke through storm night allowed him to control the sea breeze with ease. In addition, weather intuition can sense and even predict weather changes on the sea at any time. The combination of the 2 is like adding wings to a tiger. Byron seemed to have returned to the moment of spiritual sublimation. His breathing, heartbeat, touch, and perception all surpassed the limits of mortals. He held the steering wheel tightly, letting the free sea breeze blow through his hair. Close your eyes and let your spirituality gradually extend with the wind. Just like practicing storm swordsmanship day after day for several years, even if one has not yet been promoted to the 2nd level professional level and truly mastered the power of the wind, one can still breathe one with it. Gradually I began to appreciate the joy of the boat breaking through the waves. At this moment, the sail, ship, wind, and sea produced a harmonious resonance in his blood vessels. It seemed that the boat had become his mount, or even an extension of his limbs, and even his spirituality was slowly growing in this state. This is a realm that ordinary pirate professions can never reach. Haha, have fun. If helmsmen were to be graded on their driving skills, Byron would now be at least an A grade. He is not inferior to any experienced old captain, and is only inferior to those who can use active extraordinary abilities. After entering a stable acceleration state, Byron gave another order: throw down the speed rope. The masked first mate Guardian Knight Brooke stood beside Byron with a sword in hand, repeating his captain's orders loudly. Throw down the speed rope. Pft, pft. A pile of buoyant barrels and knotted ropes were thrown into the sea. In a force 20 wind of 5 knots, the warship's full set of sails can be spread out, and the sea surface is not too affected by the strong wind, so the speed can reach the fastest. It can also truly verify the design limits of a boat. Byron stared at the ship's log, looking forward to the moment when the speed reached its peak. I hope that the world's first brigantine, no, Tudor-type hybrid sailing ship, can create new history in my hands. In order to gain a faster speed, he even dismantled the front and rear forecastle towers, making the sailboat transparent from front to back and not blocking the wind. Many people may not believe it when I say it. The naval leaders of many countries clearly know that a tall poop tower is equivalent to a huge sail, which is easy to catch wind and hinder turning. It was a disaster for the maneuverability of the ship. But until now, the stern castle as tall as a city wall is still popular in the fleets of various navies. This is because the officers on the ship are all masters and nobles who need basic living conditions. To stay away from the waves, moisture, and salt spray of the sea, you must live high enough. We cannot live a life worse than pigs and dogs like the lowly sailors. When Byron served on the Blue Dragon King, he also had a comfortable and dry room on the upper deck of the stern. The current Golden Deer uses a flat deck design and there is no superstructure on board. Greatly reduce the resistance of the forecastle and stern, improve the ability to sail into the wind, and increase the speed of the ship. Suddenly. 11 knots. Captain, we actually reached 11 knots. Perry, another former trainee pilot and current navigation master, exclaimed excitedly at the stern of the ship. The sailors, who had anticipated this through their physical senses, suddenly burst into huge cheers. Long live the captain! Long live the Golden Hind! Long live! Each of them participated in the transformation of the ship and was proud of it. Morale is higher than ever. You should know that the average speed of a bulky sail-powered battleship is only 2-3 knots, 1.85 km per hour, in normal weather, and the speed of a cruiser is slightly faster. But even in the best weather, 10 knots is a huge threshold for all sailboats. This can be seen from the pursuit between the man-eating shark and the Severe, where they had to work very hard to increase the speed to the maximum 7 knots. At this moment, the Golden Deer is averaging 11 knots, not 11 knots instantly, which is enough to show its outstanding seaworthiness. As the captain, Byron felt the silver law suddenly manifest above his head at this moment, and a powerful force broke through the air. It transformed into a circle of light above the Golden Deer that was invisible to the naked eye. An inspiring line of words immediately appeared in the logbook. Title confirmed, Golden Hind, the fastest 3-masted sailing ship in the world. Obtained title special effects.